Okay, it's been a long time coming. EOJ, Case 2, the trial is here. I've got my Discord with some notes open. Yeah, I don't know what to expect. I'm kind of wanting... I'm kind of wanting to see Turning Page to be in such distress. I don't know. I guess I want to see him suffer in a sense. I don't know why. I guess because he's the most suspicious? Yeah, that's the reason. And without further ado, let's do this. I don't know what to expect here.
Okay. First trial in Equestria, no big deal. It'll just be like any other.
Except with magic, and 2 kids as defendants.
2
From
kids.
Phoenix or Apollo.
Legit.
No help.
Can you say something positive for a change?
I am positive that this trial will be anything but a cakewalk.
Cakewalk.
Why do I keep you on all the time?
Athena! There you are! Where have you been all morning? We were looking everywhere for you.
Sorry, Twilight. I got up early to run a few laps around the castle. As soon as I was done, I rushed over here.
But you were already up late last night. How many hours did you actually sleep?
About 3, I'd say.
Relatable.
Did you at least get something to eat?
I had something to drink after my laps. Nothing like some freshly squeezed orange juice after a good workout.
That wasn't her
Still let
question.
Applejack hear that.
What was that?
Nothing.
Trust me, Twilight. This is nothing out of the ordinary for Athena.
Not exactly a great idea to tire yourself out before the trial even starts, though, is it?
Hey! At least I'm getting some exercise, Mr. Overnight.
Are these new HD sprites?
It's called manga, and it's art.
Learn a lot from me. I always make sure I'm well rested before a performance. Just
HD.
There's a lot more on the line with this, though, Trucy.
You're still worried about defending both Scootaloo and Turning Page, aren't you?
Yeah, just a little bit. But I'm fine. I'm just
I feel like
a little
Phoenix's
you
hair
know?
should be darker.
Well, don't worry, Athena. I'm going to be right there with you throughout
That's
the
my
trial.
old.
You're right. Thanks again, Twilight, for agreeing to be my aid.
No problem, Athena.
I don't know what to call it,
I'm
but that's
certainly gonna need
that's
the
just
help.
me.
That's for sure.
Speaking of those kids, where are they? They should have been brought here by now.
Apparently, the prosecutor wanted to have one last conversation with them before the trial started. They should be here any minute.
Hopefully soon. The trial's about to start.
By the way, Twilight, did you manage to get any info about the prosecutor?
No.
Wait, they didn't even tell you?
No, they didn't.
Are you telling?
Sorry, Athena.
Is she?
For what?
For
Is
not
Zecora
being able
seriously
to
the
find out who
prosecutor?
the prosecutor is. I gave you my word that I would, after all.
Twilight, it's okay, really. I mean, it's not like it would make that much of a difference, right? The second we walk through those doors, we're gonna find out exactly who the prosecutor is.
Is it
anyway.
Zecora?
You did the best you could, Twilight. That's all anyone could ask for.
Hey, Scootaloo.
Good morning, every pony.
Oh, screw you.
Especially to you, Princess Twilight.
turning, there's no need to bow to me, really.
What do you mean? Of course there is. You're taking time out of your busy schedule to help defend Miss Scootaloo and me. I'm eternally grateful, Princess.
Yeah.
Wait,
After
how did you know
murdered
I was
Batman
assisting
Tiara.
the defense?
Maybe. I think she's murdered. I think he murdered Batman Tiara. Somehow.
Well, it was the prosecutor.
With that really
they told us
strong
to be aware
magic
of your
of
presence
his.
today.
Why does it always feel like we're being left in the dark? We don't know anything about the prosecution, but somehow they already know about us? And they told Turning and Scootaloo?
Miss Sykes? Princess Twilight?
Yes, Turning?
I have a request. I want you both to focus on Miss Scootaloo. I don't care what happens to me, but you must defend Scootaloo no matter what. She's
You got a
innocent.
simp over
I know
here.
it. If worse comes to worse, let me take the blame and just save her.
What? Turning, no! Do you realize what'll happen if we do that? If you're found guilty, you'll be banished from Equestria.
I know that. But that's a price I'm willing to pay. If it means Miss Scootaloo is safe.
He's absolutely serious about this.
We got a
Defend me if you
simp.
must. But just know that if I think things start to look bad, I won't hesitate to confess if it means saving her.
No, you're innocent too. You can't throw your
Nah,
life away
he's-
just for me turning.
He's
I
throwing
won't
his
let
life
you.
away.
Besides, think of your mom. She just lost your dad after all. If you end up banished,
Oh yeah, the mom. The
She'll be
sussy
fine.
mom.
Besides, she'd understand.
Super suspicious.
Sometimes sacrifices need to be made. It's my duty, as a future member of the Royal Guard. If even one life is spared, no matter whose, I'd have no regrets.
Hoopst.
Don't worry, Scootaloo. If what
Worry
the
kid.
prosecutor said is true, then we shouldn't have to worry at all. I'm just stating this as a last resort, in case things don't go according to plan.
right.
This mystery prosecutor is making secret plans with the defendants as well? You know what? I'm not gonna just stand there twiddling my thumbs. It's time for some answers. All right, just who exactly is the prosecutor?
Is
And
it
what
Zecora?
exactly did they say to you
It's
two?
probably Zecora.
I'm sorry, Miss Sykes, but we were told not to tell you anything about the prosecutor's identity or plan.
Seriously?
What's the deal? Why are they being so secretive?
I don't know, but it's starting to get on my nerves.
Turning!
I
doing all
mean,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine, Apple Bloom.
I am. Thank you for asking.
Hey, Squirt! You doing okay? Yeah, I just can't believe I'm going on trial. Yeah, it feels pretty crazy, huh? It's okay though. You made it through the worst part. All you gotta do now is sit tight and wait for Athena to prove that you didn't do it.
I'm glad you've all come out to support Scootaloo and Turning.
Well, most of us, darling.
Sweetie Belle.
A certain some pony didn't want to get out of bed today. I practically had
Why,
to drag her
Sweetie
to the
Belle?
courthouse. Oh, well, that makes sense, I guess. She was feeling sick yesterday, wasn't she?
No, she wasn't sick.
She doesn't seem like she's ill at all.
Yeah. Hi.
Sykes, what's going on?
Well, you see...
Ladybell didn't want to help us investigate the case.
Wow, Widget.
What?
No, that's... Oh, Widget!
Sweetie Boo? What's this about? Oh, no! It's not like that at all! It's not like I don't want to help. I'm just so sure that Scootaloo is innocent, and I know that Princess Twilight and Miss Sykes will be able to prove it without my help.
That's a lie.
Sweetie. That's how it works, right? In court, the truth will come out no matter what. You didn't even want to try and help, though?
Sweetie Belle! What are you talking about? We're the Cutie Mark Crusaders! We do everything together! And that includes
Something
helping each other
happened
around
in
no
that
matter
forest.
what. We've had each other's backs ever since we started looking for our cutie marks. That's the whole reason why we're friends in the first place. So why aren't you helping now?
Apple Bloom? Sweetie Belle? I know this is a rough time for y'all, but this ain't the time or place to be having this discussion.
I want to help Scootaloo. Really, I do. But considering what she did, I didn't want to get in the way and make things worse. Like you did.
What?
What's that supposed to mean? Sweetie Belle, apologize to Apple Bloom.
Talking about Sweetie Belle, what did I do?
You know what you did! You stole some fabric from Carousel Boutique the other night! You went into the forest and gave it to Diamond Star and Silver Spoon, didn't you? In exchange for your scooter?
Go!
She's mad?
That's enough. This ain't...
Wait a minute. Sweetie Belle, how did you know that Scootaloo stole the fabric in the first place?
Yeah. How did you know about
Weren't they
that?
together? Or... I was forgotten. Oh, she's
What are
waiting.
you hiding from us, Sweetie Belle?
Rainbow! That is quite enough!
No! She's clearly keeping quiet about something. And if it can help Scootaloo, then she needs to tell us.
You need to calm down, Rainbow. You're not helping any pony by scaring Sweetie Belle.
I just knew, alright? Something didn't seem right when Turning showed up in the middle of the night to say hello, so I figured something was up. I checked around the boutique after he left and noticed one roll of golden silk was missing. That's all!
See, there you go, Rainbow. A perfectly reasonable
That's not reasonable, but it'll do for now.
Don't buy it. Look at her. She's shaking like a leaf. I think she's still hiding
I know
something.
I know she's still hiding
Tell us
something.
what happened. You
It's not
followed them
important
there,
right now,
didn't
though.
you?
Rainbow! Back off!
Look, I need to go! We'll see you all in there, okay?
Dang.
I'll go after her. But you and
Props
I
to
are going to have a
the-
serious talk later,
Props to
Rainbow
the
Duck.
voice of Sweetie Belle. I loved that
Darn it, Rainbow.
interaction.
What a mess.
I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that.
I just don't get it. Why would Sweetie Belle doubt Scootaloo? Aren't they all good friends?
They are. But I don't know.
Even close friends could still doubt each other. But not typically without a very good reason.
If I could have everybody's attention, the trial is about to begin. Will the defendants and their attorney please make their way
Alright,
into the
it's
courtroom?
time to see who's this
Here we go.
prosecutor.
Deep breaths, Athena.
Bubs, ready?
Widget, you don't even have palms.
Don't worry, you've got this. Remember to focus and you'll be able to prove your client's innocence.
Just believe in yourself. Okay? Thanks, you guys.
I know this is a big step for you as a lawyer, but we all start somewhere. It's time for you to take that next leap
Oh,
forward.
I know exactly why
I'm
Sweetie
confident
Belle
you'll
knows.
succeed. You'll always have my full support.
Boss.
I think.
We got this. Right, Twilight?
Of course, Athena. Now, let's go.
Yeah, I definitely know why, maybe. I'm just not. I just haven't looked at all this stuff in months.
Court is now in session for the trial of
Hello,
Scootaloo
Judge.
and Turning Page. Are the prosecution and defense ready?
Where's the prosecution?
That's weird. The prosecution is missing.
Is it a tiny
Wait.
prosecution?
Why is the judge still here?
Prosecution, defense. Are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor. But, you're still here then?
You didn't think I'd go straight back home, did you? I figured I'd just take a short vacation in this wonderful world.
Of course
Is
he
it
would.
really a vacation if you're still working?
I truly do love it here in Equestria. After I'm done with today's trial, I plan on doing some sightseeing for a few days before I head back home. I know I said
Never
I wasn't
change.
interested before, but I'm thinking of checking out that race Prince Blueblood mentioned. I'll admit I don't have much experience with them, but I suppose it could be fun to watch. Princess Twilight, if you know of any other sights I could catch in Equestria, I'd
Why are they cringing?
I'll let you know, Your Honor.
So,
Also,
why
is that
are
a
you
deer
here
pony
exactly,
in the
Your
back?
Honor?
I have no idea
In
what
court,
that was.
Well, actually, it was Princess Celestia who asked me to preside over this trial.
It's like a deer or
Princess
whatever.
Celestia asked you?
Or
Why?
it might just be a pony with
I'm
weird
sorry,
markings.
Miss Sparkle, but I'm afraid I don't have that answer. The letter I received simply asked if I would be willing to preside over the trial, and I agreed.
That's odd. Wasn't that supposed to be one of Princess Celestia's responsibilities? The only
She
reason
just has
she
some
wasn't the judge for the
popcorn.
previous trial was because Twilight specifically
She
requested
wants
it.
to watch on the
But that doesn't
sidelines.
seem to be the case this time. Just what is going on here?
In any case,
So,
we should get started
is
with the trial.
Sonata going to be prosecution?
Prosecution, I have still yet to hear
That,
your
that
answer.
would make sense,
Are
though.
you ready?
Forget hearing the answer. I'd settle for just seeing them.
If the prosecution is not prepared, then it would appear that I will have to postpone the trial until they arrive. Very well. Court is...
Hold it!
Is it? No. No way.
My apologies, Your Honor. The prosecution is ready.
But Luna!
Time. Huh? Wait. She has wings?
What's Luna doing here?
Does that mean...
Oh? And who might you be?
What's Luna doing
I
here?
am Princess Luna. A pleasure to meet you, Your Honor.
Princess?
Ah, yes. I do recall receiving a message that the original prosecutor for this case chose to allocate their duties to another. Regardless, that is no excuse to be late to court, Princess?
Just prosecutor will do, Your Honor. And I understand. My sincerest apologies. A colleague of mine had something they wished to discuss with me, and so it delayed my arrival. Nevertheless, the prosecution is now prepared.
Very well.
Princess Luna, huh? So she is an alicorn, just like Twilight. I suppose that makes sense, given that she's a princess.
What
and
is
all.
Luna? Why is Luna
Though,
prosecuting?
It sounds familiar. Wait.
It was where Equestria's current rulers, Princess Celestia and Luna,
It's
used
a
to
long
live.
story.
Oh, that's right. She's one of Equestria's leaders.
What's that castle over there? It's a long
My
story.
luck. How am
What about
I
Luna?
supposed to
It's a long
keep up with
story.
the ruler of an entire country. Okay, relax. Just focus on the case. Still, something about her appearance. Have I seen her somewhere before? Hey, Twilight, Twilight? What's wrong?
Princess Luna? What are you doing here?
Ah, Twilight Sparkle. I heard that you would be assisting the defense today.
Heard? I think it's more likely that you found out during your nightly stroll. Am I right?
I should have expected you'd know. You've always been the clever one.
What the heck are they talking about?
Nevertheless, Miss Sparkle, the reason I'm here is quite simple. It is my duty to uphold the laws of Equestria. I am simply fulfilling that duty.
Why is
Regardless
Luna
of whom it is
here
I may
though?
be prosecuting, Be they adult or child, friend or foe, I plan to fulfill my responsibility to the fullest. But of course, being the clever pony that you are, I'm sure you could have guessed that, couldn't you?
Flattery does not suit you, Luna.
Twilight.
As for you, Defense...
Huh? Me?
I must confess, I was hoping that the Blue Phoenix would stand against me.
Blue
The Blue Phoenix.
His efforts during the TS5 case and the case from 2 days ago were certainly admirable, twice proving there was no murder in our peaceful country. So, imagine my surprise when I learned that you would be the lead on this case instead. You, whom I have only heard of in hearsay and whispers that began spreading after the trial in Manhattan. I look forward to seeing if you can hold yourself up to the same standards that the Blue Phoenix has set.
The Blue Phoenix.
You'll see. I will live up to its example. With Twilight by my side, Scootaloo and Turning Page are as good as free.
Is that so? Well, that's wonderful to hear.
She's
and
very,
with that, let us resume this trial. Prosecutor Luna, you may make your opening statement.
At once, Your Honor.
All right, let's do this. Ready, Twilight?
Twilight, you're not even doing your job.
Sorry.
Worst.
Right. Let's get
Worst
this started.
pony. Not worst pony, just worst at doing that job.
Today's proceedings shall center around the murder of Royal Order, who had just returned home from Canterlot the night he was killed.
Let's see a
He was a member
refresher
of
here.
the Royal Guard.
What? The guard's pony was killed? Not just killed, he was murdered. What does this mean? Are we still safe?
Rest assured, my little ponies.
She said
There
it.
is no cause for alarm.
Roll the credits.
We anticipated this would be the public's reaction to this news. That is why we withheld this information until we had all the facts.
That's right. Private Eye mentioned something about keeping the victim's identity a secret from the public. Looks like that was the right call.
Now that we have investigated this matter in full, we are ready to present the truth behind this stallion's death to the court and the public. I will begin by submitting the victim's autopsy report.
The court
We
accepts
finally
the
get an
report as
autopsy?
evidence.
Or... No.
The time of death is estimated to be on the evening of February 12th between 9:30 p.m., when the victim was last seen, and 10:30 p.m., when the body was discovered. The coroner was able to confirm this during their examination of the body. Death came as the result of a single stab wound to the right side of the victim's head.
A single lethal strike, then.
It's not quite that simple, Your Honor. There was only one visible wound, but he appears to have been stabbed at least twice. Whether or not this was caused by a single weapon or multiple weapons is unclear. What we
But that
do
doesn't make
know for
sense.
certain is that the victim
Why would
died
it-
instantly after just a single stab.
Why would they
All
be stabbed
subsequent
multiple
stabs the
times?
victim suffered were post-mortem.
In other words, the only thing we need to be concerned with is figuring out how the victim suffered his initial stab wound. That's what killed him.
Additionally, we discovered a large bruise on the left side of the victim's torso, indicating that he was struck by some sort of object. However, unlike the subsequent stab wounds, the victim received this bruise before he died.
I see.
What I'm still wondering is, why did the killer stab the victim in the head of all places? That's way too bizarre to not be important.
There's still one more point
How would
in this
Scootaloo
autopsy
be able
report
to
that
reach the head?
confuses me, though.
Reach their head,
I
though.
assume you are referring to the affliction the victim was suffering?
That's correct. This poison joke. I've done my research on Equestria, but I'm afraid my studies didn't quite cover this topic.
There's no need to worry,
Ah,
Your
yes.
Honor. I shall
The
explain.
stupid flower.
Poison joke is a rare type of flower, native only to the everfree forest. It is relatively harmless, but should one so much as touch the plant, they will be afflicted with a bizarre condition unique to every individual.
Yeah, which
This
makes
is all
it
stuff that
obsolete
Twilight
in this
mentioned
case,
yesterday.
unless you can
In
prove
the
it.
case of Royal Order, the affliction he suffered was weak knees.
Weak
Ironic
knees?
that a member of the Royal Guard would be afflicted with a condition that makes it difficult to stand tall.
Indeed.
Weak
As
knees,
for the
huh?
body itself, it was discovered at the foot of the bridge leading to the castle of the two sisters. As you can
How do
see
we
on
know
this
this?
diagram, the castle ruins lie at the very end of the path that cuts through the Everfree Forest. We also have an additional diagram here that gives us a closer look at the crime scene itself. The X we've marked on here is representative of where the body was at the time of its discovery. Lastly, the prosecution wishes to submit this photo of the crime scene to the court. The victim's body had already been removed for autopsy by the time it was taken, but we laid out tape to mark its exact positioning.
Very well. The court accepts the diagrams and photo as evidence.
The ponies accused of committing this wretched crime are Turning Page, the son of the victim, and Scootaloo, a friend of Turning's.
It is rather difficult for me to believe that these two children would do something like this, though. Not to mention the fact that one of the two standing accused is
they are
the
way too
victim's
small
own
to
son.
accomplish the
It's
feat.
certainly a rather tough pill to swallow, but I am certain that, in time, you will come to see that these two were the only ones capable of committing this crime.
You'd
What
better
about
have some
the-
pretty
what about the
substantial
mother?
evidence to back up your claims, Prosecutor Luna. These are
Clearly there's
children's
something
lives at stake.
up with her.
Trust me, Your Honor. It brings me no pleasure to prosecute these young souls. However, justice must still be served. In the eyes of the law, every pony is equal. Age is a non-issue. I trust that you, too, know this, and will remain impartial in your judgment.
Certainly, Prosecutor Luna. That is the duty of a judge.
Alright, can we get this?
I'm
Can we
glad
get
to
a
hear
witness?
that, Your Honor.
Well then, defense. What is your stance regarding the charges filed against your clients?
Your Honor, we stand by our plea of not guilty. The defendants, Turning Page and Scootaloo, are both completely innocent of the charges filed against them.
The court acknowledges the defense's position. Now then, let's hear from the prosecution's first witness.
Your Honor.
We have a witness.
The prosecution would like to call the detective in charge of this investigation, Private Eye, to the stand.
Private Eye?
Very well.
All right. Private Eye's up first, then. Hopefully he doesn't say anything too damaging.
Witness, please state your name and occupation for the record.
My name is Private Eye, Princess.
Hello
Detective.
there.
And might I say,
sir.
good morning to everyone present. Princess Twilight, Miss Sykes, my
A sweetie belle.
Good morning.
Lord!
Hat and tie.
Used to that.
And we've already lost him.
The prosecution's first course of action will be to make the actions of the victim clear to the court. Detective, please testify in regards to this matter.
At once, Your Highness.
Is that a hand tie pony? Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
The victim, Royal Order, was stationed in Camelot until late afternoon on the day of his murder. After his shift ended, he boarded a train and arrived in Ponyville at around 9:15 that night. Upon his return home, he was informed of Turning's whereabouts and decided to head into the Everfree Forest to find him. When he arrived at the base of the bridge, in front of the castle of the two sisters, he was ambushed and murdered.
Our investigation determined that Turning Page had gone off into the
What is
forest
there
with Scootaloo
to-
that night for currently unknown reasons.
I don't see
We believe this
anything.
is why the victim was in the forest that night. He was trying to save his son.
I see. You'd certainly need a very good reason to be willing to head that far into the forest.
But don't
If I
they
recall
live in the
correctly,
forest?
that
Or am
place
I-
is filled with all kinds of dangerous creatures, isn't it?
It is indeed, Your Honor.
He wasn't
Figuring
trying
out
to
why
save
the
his
victim
son. What do
chose
you
to go so
mean?
far into the forest was one of the key questions
He-
we had during
he
our
goes into the
investigation.
forest
It was the statement of one
pretty
Miss
much
Devotion
daily.
that cleared the matter up for us.
Miss Devotion?
The victim's wife, Fair Devotion. She's a substitute teacher at the local schoolhouse. While her husband was away in
She
Canada,
hates children.
Miss Devotion would take care of her son all by herself. This on top of her demanding role as a teacher and member of the Ponyville School Board, you see.
She certainly sounds like a very kind, hard-working mare.
We will see.
She was home when the victim returned, and it was she who told him the turning page had gone into the forest that night.
So, the reason the victim went into the forest
Turning
was to chase
page
after
goes
his
in
son?
that forest a
That is
lot.
what the evidence and statement currently point to, yes.
It's hard to argue against that. I guess in that case, I'll just see what other information I can draw out of Private Eye.
Now,
I am
Miss
way
Sykes,
too dummy
you may
for
begin your
this.
cross-examination.
It's not like I'm the defense, so I don't really have much of a reason to pay too much attention to this.
The victim, Royal Order, was stationed in Camelot until late afternoon on the day of his murder.
Hold it! What was he doing there?
He was performing his routine duties as a guard. Nothing out of the ordinary.
What did those duties entail?
Monitoring doors, patrolling hallways, the standard fare.
So
Important?
he was just your average, everyday guard?
I suppose you could say that, yes.
There was nothing special about his rank, his title, anything at all?
Well, as a detective, I can only know so much. What do you think, Princess Luna?
It's just as Detective Eye says. As someone who gave the victim his orders, I can say with certainty that there was nothing that set him apart from the other guards in our entourage. If you're looking for a motive defense, I'm sorry to say that you will not find it here.
Well, there you have it. You couldn't ask for a clearer answer than that.
Shoot. I was really hoping I would get something out of that.
Yeah, she's
if
just
he
an
was
ordinary
just an
guard.
ordinary guard, then that eliminates any potential motive that could be tied to his rank. Still, though, the way Private Eye shifted my question to Princess Luna, something still doesn't seem right here.
Defense!
Princess Luna
Please stop staring at
has
the
a royal
witness
guard.
and continue your cross-examination.
That's not weird at all.
Yes! Sorry, Your Honor.
I don't
I'll
think
have
that's
to look
weird.
into that later. Gotta continue pressing the detective for information now.
After his shift ended, he boarded a train and arrived in Ponyville at around 9:15 that night.
Hold it! How long had he stayed in Canterlot?
Nearly a month, according to our findings.
A month?
Royal Order often spent many weeks in Canterlot with little time to himself. Even when offered extended sabbaticals, he chose to forego them in service to the crown.
That means that his son
This fellow seemed
hasn't
like quite the
been
workaholic.
around him for a while.
Says the guy working on his vacation.
He was simply honor-bound to serving Equestria and maintaining harmony amongst its citizens. Whenever he wasn't on active duty, he spent all of his time with his family in Ponyville.
He certainly was the epitome, a royal guard's pony.
Is that how you spell
Certainly
epitome?
a great sense of loss for both his country
I don't know.
and
I'll
those
have to look
close
that
to
up
him.
later.
That's odd. That sounded a lot more sorrowful than anything I would expect from Private Eye.
The day he was murdered was no different than any of his other off-duty times. He returned to Ponyville to visit his family. According to our investigation into the ticket purchases and train schedules for February 12th, Royal's train arrived in Ponyville at 9:15. He then headed straight home, arriving about 10 minutes later.
And what did the victim do once he got there?
Upon his return home,
Is that
he was
important?
informed of Turning's whereabouts and decided to head into the Everfree Forest to find him.
So, it was Fair Devotion who told the victim that Turning Page had gone into the forest?
Indeed. We heard this from Miss Devotion herself.
And how did she know what her son was doing? I doubt she would have allowed Turning to go somewhere that dangerous.
During our
He goes there
investigation of the
constantly.
victim's house, we found a note written in Turning's handwriting confessing to his actions that night. Miss Devotion knew where her son had gone because of this note.
Went to the Everfree Forest. Be back soon.
Went to the Everfree Forest. Be back soon. Succinct and straight to the point. Just what I would expect from Turning. If Miss Devotion was the one who discovered this note, why didn't she go after him as soon as she found it?
As you said yourself, the Everfree Forest is a dangerous place, especially after dark. She knew Royal Order would be coming home soon, so she decided to wait until the more able-bodied pony had arrived before attempting to follow after her son.
So she's
According
not
to Miss Devotion,
caring
Royal
about her
Order
son
offered to go find
enough
him.
to
She insisted
check.
on going with her husband, but he told her to stay put. She reluctantly complied and watched him leave at around 9:30. That was the last time she ever saw him.
Ooh, that sounds rather ominous. Like something right out of a horror movie.
Did the victim make any stops on his way to the forest?
I beg your pardon?
I'm just wondering if it's possible that the victim went somewhere else before entering the Everfree Forest.
I'm afraid we neglected to look into this matter, so I cannot say anything for certain.
The forest entrance is roughly 20 minutes away from the victim's house. The crime scene is about 35 minutes away from the entrance. The body was discovered at 10:30 p.m. Do the math, attorney. Do you really think the victim could have dawdled before entering the forest?
Considering there was only 5 extra minutes to do something else, I highly doubt it.
Well, not so fast, Prosecutor Luna.
Twilight?
What is it, Miss Sparkle?
The victim was a unicorn, wasn't he? Did he, by any chance, know how to teleport?
That's
No,
right. I have to keep
I don't
in mind
think
that this
so.
is a world of magic. Not everything here follows the rules of my own world.
Detective, do you have the answer to Princess Twilight's question?
I do indeed, Your Highness. Royal Order was an incredibly gifted unicorn. Teleportation was just one of many spells he had long since mastered.
So,
Are you kidding
if
me?
he could teleport,
He knows how to
then the time it
teleport.
would have taken the victim to travel between locations is irrelevant. Wouldn't you say?
You have a point, but as I'm sure one as proficient in magic as yourself is aware, one cannot teleport to locations that they've never been.
You mean?
We could not find any indication that the victim had ever been to the castle of the two sisters before this incident. The best we
can't
could
not
uncover
prove it.
were multiple instances of him and his son going to Froggy Bottom Bog to spar with the monsters that inhabit the area.
Froggy Bottom Bog, huh? I think I heard about that place yesterday. It's down the path that leads to the right from the crossroads, isn't it?
Quite so. You can see it here on the map we drew of the forest. If one were to walk to Froggy Bottom Bog, they would first have to travel to the crossroads to get there.
So that means he could at least teleport as far as the crossroads, right? He must have been there before when traveling to his sparring sessions. If so, then he may have teleported to the crossroads first and walked the rest of the way to the castle. This could make his travel time 30 minutes at most.
I suppose that's a reasonable assumption to make. Then, are you saying that between 9:30 and 10, the victim was off doing something else? Why? His son had gone off into the Everfree Forest alone at night. Do you really think he'd waste time delaying his entrance into the forest? If anything, he would have used the extra half hour he had to search elsewhere in the woods. After all,
He could
it's
check
not
out
like he
some
could have known
forest
exactly
place.
where his son was.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of hard to believe that Royal Order would have risked his son's safety by taking a detour, given what we've heard about him so far. Twilight, any ideas?
Unfortunately, none. I didn't think this line of questioning was necessarily going to reveal anything case-breaking, but still, knowing that the victim had a half-hour period where he could act freely without heading to the crime scene, I think that might be something we'll want to keep in mind.
I agree. It might not be relevant, but you never know.
Miss
Perhaps.
Sykes, Miss Sparkle, if you aren't done whispering over there, then let's continue
Didn't
with the
he
testimony.
have wobbly knees?
Sorry, Your Honor.
He
Private,
had weak knees,
please continue.
and the fact that there's
When he arrived at the base of the bridge, in front of the castle of the two
the fact
sisters,
that there's
he was ambushed
Timberwolves.
and murdered.
Hold it! He was ambushed?
We believe so, yes.
What led you to that conclusion?
It was the bruise on the left side of his body. We believe that the assailant first delivered the blow to his torso in order to knock the victim to the ground. This was then followed up by at least 2 stabs to the head, the first of which must have killed the victim. If the victim had been on guard at the time, There isn't a chance some pony of his caliber would have been knocked down so easily. That is why we believe he was taken by surprise.
But walking through that dark, dangerous forest in the middle of the night, wouldn't the victim have been on guard regardless?
Perhaps. But you are forgetting something else, Sykes. The victim was suffering from the effects of poison joke.
Weak knees.
Weak knees!
Exactly. The poison joke caused the victim's legs to be weaker than normal. So, when his assailant struck him, even if he was completely
that still
guard,
doesn't explain why you're
have been knocked to the ground.
saying it's a child.
I guess that's true.
That certainly seems to make sense. And what weapon are you proposing was used to knock the victim down?
We believe it was the sword of the defendant, Turning Page, my lord.
One of the defendants has a sword?
It's a wooden sword.
Your Honor, no need to worry. I have it right here. The defendant has been known to carry this sword everywhere he goes. That night was no different. According to our witness,
Objection, that sword is broken.
His sword was still in one piece. Yet the sword you see now is broken. Turning Page's mother has also confirmed that his sword was undamaged earlier that day.
Probably a
the
lie.
prosecution contends that the sword broke when it was used to attack the victim.
The sword broke when he attacked Diamond Tiara.
That's definitely a strong possibility.
Objection! Wait, hold on. That's not how the sword broke.
Oh?
Yeah, that's not how the sword
yes,
broke.
It's true that the sword is broken right now, but that's because...
Objection!
Whoa,
Before
fancy
you
objection.
explain to us, defense, I would like you to tell us from where you learned this alternate interpretation.
From where? Well, I guess it was from Turning Page.
From the defendant himself, in other words? Do you truly believe that story to be reliable in that case?
It could be reliable.
Unless you have some proof to back up his story, I think you do well to keep it to yourself for now.
Huh? For now?
In any case, the prosecution recognizes that our own evidence on the matter is circumstantial. More definitive evidence may yet prove our claim to be false. At the moment, however, this interpretation of the facts surrounding the sword is the most likely scenario.
The court
That's not how the
with
sword broke.
prosecution.
No! I know that's not how it happened. That sword broke when Turning used it to attack those blackmailing bullies. But unless I can find some proof of that,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to convince anyone.
Talk to the Crusaders.
Sucks.
Bring the Crusader.
Get those two on the stand. One of them might have a bruise somewhere that I could point out. That'll have to wait until
Get
later,
Apple Bloom
though.
on the stand.
I have to finish this testimony first.
So I assume that this sword of the defendant's was also used to stab the victim?
No.
It was not, Your Honor. There wasn't a single trace of blood on the sword. No forensic spell or potion could reveal even a single drop.
But then, what was used to stab the victim?
Oh boy, here it comes.
Supposedly the
It was a possession belonging to the other defendant, Miss Scootaloo. She stabbed him using her scooter.
A scooter?
Yeah, it's pretty stupid.
How is that even possible? Scooters aren't sharp. Are they?
Not normally, my lord. But in this case, the scooter in question was broken.
Broken? How?
The left handlebar was snapped off, leaving behind a sharp, exposed bolt that could easily puncture a body.
You can see it in the photo I submitted earlier, Your Honor. The scooter was unquestionably at the scene, and I have it recorded right here that the bolt itself was covered in blood.
How would she be able to
we discovered
steer
that the
that?
blood was indeed the victim's.
What?
How would someone be able to steer that?
Order! Order, I say! I must admit, as unbelievable as it appeared to be at first, the more I listen, the more it seems like these two kids really did commit this crime.
As regrettable as it is to think so, the evidence certainly points to that conclusion. The victim arrived on the scene and was ambushed by his son, Turning Page. He used his sword to hit his father's left side. This attack caused the sword to break, thanks to the poison joke affliction that the victim was suffering at the time. He couldn't resist the impact and was knocked to the ground. At that point, the other assailant, Scootaloo, rushed to the victim's side. She stabbed him in the head multiple times with the scooter before he could even react to what was happening.
How?
Yes.
First of all, the wheels can't move. Second of all, how would she be able to maneuver that?
Wait a second. I think there might be a contradiction in the sequence of events. Although, I might be overthinking this. No. I have to be onto something here. Right?
How would they...
Don't doubt yourself,
How would they even
Athena.
stab?
Twilight?
If you think there's a contradiction,
How could
then
she
go for
stab
it.
that?
I'll be right here with you.
Right. Thanks, Twilight. Your Honor, I would like what Private Eye just said to be added to his testimony.
Very well. Detective, if you please.
Certainly, my lord.
Alright.
The victim was knocked to
Going
the
down.
ground and then stabbed before he could even react.
Objection! Private
What's the
Eye,
objection?
there's a contradiction in your testimony.
What is it?
Please, do tell.
Tell us.
Yes, enlighten us, defense. What is this supposed contradiction?
Right. It's written here in the autopsy report. Cause of death was a single stab wound to the right temple that caused immediate death, followed by at least one more post-mortem.
It does say that, yes, but
How is that
I failed to see
contradicting?
how this contradicts the witness's testimony.
Well, Your Honor, it's simple. If the victim was first knocked to the ground by a blow to his left side, as Private Eye claims, then tell me this. Which side of the victim's head would be facing up?
Well, that would be the left side, wouldn't it?
Oh my god.
Oh!
Exactly, Your Honor. The victim would land with the left side of his head facing up, meaning it would be impossible to stab him in the right temple.
Ah.
Order! Order! That's certainly a puzzling contradiction. The victim couldn't possibly have been stabbed in the right temple if he were in that position.
Okay, but...
Prosecutor Luna, any thoughts?
You certainly pose an interesting dilemma,
Actually,
defense.
in the crime scene
So,
photo, it shows
are you
it,
implying
him
that the victim was
on his
first
left
stabbed
side.
in the head and then hit in the torso? It would certainly help your case if you were. After all, a child would have a much more difficult time trying to stab a fully grown stallion in the head if he were standing up straight, even if one of them was a unicorn.
Is that what I'm implying here? Could the victim have been stabbed before he was struck?
That can't be it, Athena. Think back to the autopsy report one more time.
You're right, Twilight.
He was
Well,
knocked
Miss
to the...
Sykes, is what the prosecution said
No, he was
true?
knocked to the other side.
Are you
If you
claiming
look
that
on
the
the...
victim was first stabbed and then struck?
I'm not, Your Honor.
You aren't?
Intriguing. And why not, defense?
It says so right here in the autopsy report. The victim suffered a large bruise on the left side of his torso, ante-mortem. He was hit before he was killed. Since the autopsy report notes that the victim was instantly killed by the first stab wounds, that means it would have been impossible for the victim to have been struck in the torso after he was stabbed. I did it! I managed to find a flaw in the prosecution's case.
I'm not
Way
sure...
to go, Athena.
Let's
I'm
see how
not
the
sure
princess
where
tries to
they're
get out of
going
this
with that,
one.
but on the
Prosecutor
crime scene
Luna,
photo,
do you have an explanation for this seemingly unexplainable contradiction?
the corpse is on the left on their
Of
left
course
side.
I do.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Wait, what?
Is that what Luna's about to
can
say?
explain it?
That the
Then please share
sticker
your
on the left
theory
side?
with the court.
At once, Your Honor. As the defense has so eagerly demonstrated for us, the victim's autopsy report creates quite a few perplexing contradictions. However, there are two explanations that can clear them all up.
Tell us, Luna.
Two?
The first is a rather simple one. After the victim was struck, he fell onto something sharp, and it pierced his head, killing him.
What?
The victim fell onto the murder weapon?
Well, It might not be right to call it a murder weapon. After all, there's no proof to indicate that the assailant ever intended on killing the victim, should this be the case. And the crime scene was a forest, after all. Who knows what could be on the ground? All kinds of dangerous objects, I'm sure.
Indeed. This murder could very well have been an accident in that case. But then, wouldn't the object that took the victim's life still be at the scene? You would have found it there, wouldn't you?
Not if the culprit took it away in a panic or in fear.
And what about the blood on the scooter?
That could have been the result of our real culprit wishing to frame Miss Scootaloo for the crime. Even if it was an accident, the culprit still wouldn't want to be caught. They would likely fabricate a weapon to avoid their punishment. In truth, while the stab wound in question is quite similar in shape to the exposed bolt on the scooter, irregularities were discovered during the examination, which indicates that it's possible 2 different items could have stabbed the victim.
I see. Which would mean the
Turning
culprit
page.
is...
Indeed, Your Honor. The evidence, as it stands, suggests that Turning Page was the one who knocked the victim over. On top of that, out of the 2 defendants, he's the only one who would benefit from making a fake weapon out of the scooter.
If that's the case, then everything would line up, wouldn't it?
What do you think, defense? Do you wish to argue that this was all an accident, perpetrated by Turning Page alone?
You're going up against the wrong person if you think you can manipulate me into saying what you want, Princess. That being said, if I did argue that this was what happened, I could get Turning Page's sentence reduced significantly, and Scootaloo would be off the hook completely. Is that what I should do? Turning did say he'd be willing to take the blame for this.
Do it, but is it?
Turning's
No, he's
like,
guilty.
Is he trying to tell me to let him take the fall? But if I do that, then...
Athena?
I'm not sure what to do here, Twilight. The way things are going, I could very easily get Scootaloo off the hook, and Turning a light prison sentence.
That would have everything turn out just as Turning asked back in the defendant lobby.
But I don't think I should do that. If I do, that'll just mean we're admitting that Turning killed his own father, even if only by accident. And that will undoubtedly have a severe effect on him. His family, his peers...
He seems fine with it.
Never look at him or treat him the same way again. It'll ruin his life.
Even so, Turning seems to be satisfied with that.
Well, I'm not. I don't care if he thinks it'd be a good thing to do. Because it isn't! I'm supposed to look out for both his and Scootaloo's best interest. And him taking the blame isn't what she wants. So if Luna's got some sort of trap waiting for me, bring it on. I'll never admit that either of them had anything to do with Royal Order's death.
If that's the path you're going down, then don't you worry. I've got your back.
Thank you, Twilight.
Miss Sykes,
Okay,
if you're
Twilight,
done
you're pretty
whispering to your
useless this trial.
co-counsel, then tell us. Do you intend to argue that this murder was, in fact, an accident?
I don't think
No,
it was
Your
an
Honor.
accident.
I do not.
You don't?
The defense's stance is simply this. We assert that neither Scootaloo nor Turning Page had any hand, or hoof, rather, in this murder.
I can't say that.
He was.
How ambitious of you, little golden pixie.
Golden Pixie?
Golden Pixie?
If that's the case, then you are admitting that the second explanation for our autopsy contradiction is the correct one?
Yes. Of course. As soon as I figure out what that is.
Not so confident, are you? Perhaps once we elucidate the matter, you'll see the folly of your actions. Private Eye, if you please.
At once, Princess. If the issue is merely in regards to the claim that the victim didn't have time to react before getting stabbed, then the solution is simple. He did react. When he was knocked over, he must have lifted his head to see who hit him. Once he did, his right temple would have been exposed, allowing the second assailant a chance to stab him there.
that's not possible
Right.
because the crime
That
scene
does
photo
clear up the contradiction quite nicely.
is on
Well
his
then,
right side.
there you have it.
He's on his left
If the
side.
defense refuses to argue that this was an accident, then this is the only other possibility that fits the evidence.
This isn't good. Unless I can poke a hole in this theory, we're gonna be up a creek with no paddle. There must be something we're overlooking.
Excuse me, Golden Pixie.
Yeah?
I see you're straining yourself over there. No doubt desperately clawing for some sort of advantage in this argument.
Was it that obvious?
Unfortunately, I'm afraid you're not going to find one. Just look over the evidence again, and I'm sure you'll realize you're fighting on the wrong side of this debate.
What? I'm fighting on the wrong side. Why did Luna say that? Was that supposed to be a hint? Come on.
The crime scene photo.
Think. Fighting on the wrong side. Fighting on the wrong side. The evidence shows that I'm fighting on the wrong. I've got it. Objection! Your Honor, there's no way the murder could have played out the way the prosecution
Because the
is
crime
claiming
scene
it did.
photo.
Oh? How so, Miss Sykes?
Let's look back at the photo of the crime
Yeah, he's on the left side.
scene. Here, we can see an outline of the body as it was at the time of the discovery. Looking at it, don't you find it to be a little odd?
Odd? What do you mean? The victim is on his side,
The wrong
just
side.
as the prosecution claimed.
Yes, but think back to the earlier theory. The victim was hit on the left side of his torso and was knocked to the ground. Now, if he was hit on the left side, then his right side should have been what hit the ground, right?
Yes, I suppose so.
But in the crime scene photo, he's on his left.
In this photo, we can clearly see the victim fell on his left side.
Yeah.
You're right.
Obvious contradiction. I don't know how Athena missed that.
Order! Prosecutor Luna, do you have an explanation for this? This completely overturns your entire case.
Quite literally, in fact.
You weren't fazed by it?
I'm afraid not, Your Honor. Sorry to disappoint you.
So then,
She planned
do you
this?
have an explanation for this after all?
Perhaps we should allow the one who brought this to our attention an opportunity to explain it first.
Me?
Who else?
Well, I don't know. I just pointed out the contradiction. I hadn't really thought about what it means yet.
Well, one thing it could mean, Prosecutor Luna, is that the police made a mistake when they were outlining the body.
I assure you, no mistakes were made. I saw to the removal of the body myself. The tape outline was made around the body just before it was removed. Private Eye can confirm this, as he was also there at the time.
Yes, the tape was laid down before the body was moved. There's no chance it was a mistake on our part.
If
There
that's
was a
the
mistake
case,
on
then this contradiction
the killer.
eliminates the possibility of this being an accidental killing. The victim couldn't have fallen on something if he ended up with his stabbed side facing towards the sky.
Indeed. And what else?
Well...
Oh, I think I've got it. It would also mean that the body itself had to have been moved, right?
How so?
If the side of his body that was hit somehow ended up facing the ground, it would mean that whoever killed him must have moved the body from somewhere else and placed it down incorrectly. I don't know if that was by accident or on purpose, but the body had to have been moved.
And why couldn't the explanation be as simple as the victim himself having rolled over after being hit? Or having his feet swept out from under him, causing him to fall on his left side?
Because if he really did land on his right side after being hit, and then rolled over, he would have ended up facing away from his attacker, regardless of which direction he rolled. I doubt he would have wanted to let them out of his sight.
As for why the assailant couldn't have swept out his knees, the autopsy report doesn't mention anything about the victim's knees being injured. Even if they were weak at the time, some bruise or mark would have been left behind if they were hit with enough force to topple him over.
There's no doubt that the victim must have fallen over when he was hit. His legs were far too weak to support him after suffering the blow to his side.
So, how's that for an answer, Prosecutor Luna?
There's still some
The victim's
questions.
body was moved after he was killed. That's the
Why-
only
why
way he
is-
could have ended up being found with the left side of his body facing the ground.
The only way? Are you sure about that?
Ay, caramba. What now?
I think you are forgetting one last possibility.
And what would that be, Prosecutor Luna?
First, let's review what we've uncovered so far. We know that the victim was struck on his left side, which undoubtedly caused him to fall on his right side. However, when the body was discovered, the victim was found to have fallen on his left side. Between the time the victim fell over and the time the body was discovered, the victim must have moved to account for this change in positioning.
Exactly. The culprit, after killing the victim, moved the body.
That's not necessarily the case, Golden Pixie.
What do you mean?
How?
Undoubtedly, the
How
victim
does
was
this mean
knocked
that they
over
moved
after
the
he was
body?
hit. But who's to say that's also when he died?
You mean?
Yes, I do. The victim was not stabbed when he was knocked to the ground. Instead, after he was knocked over, he managed to stand himself back up. After an unspecified amount of time, he was then stabbed in the right temple, which
That
caused him
wouldn't
to
make
fall
some
over
sense.
onto his left side.
Order! Order in the court! After hearing both the prosecution and defense's claims, I believe I must side with the prosecution's stance.
What? But why?
Your theory of the body being moved, while plausible, simply lacks enough evidence to back it up, and leaves too many questions unanswered.
True.
If the body was moved, who moved it, why, and from where?
Those are all, really good questions, Your Honor.
Oh, why thank you, Miss Sykes. I have been doing this for quite some time, you know.
If you wish to pursue the theory of the body having been moved,
Why
you'll
would the
need to
body
first
move?
disprove that he was killed at the castle ruins. All of the evidence presented in the trial so far points towards the likelihood of the murder occurring there. Furthermore, nothing was missing from the crime scene to suggest that the murder may have occurred elsewhere. Right, defense?
Except for blood.
There it is again. She's hinting at something. What does she want me to see? Something missing from the crime scene?
There is blood
Everything's
missing.
here, isn't it? The scooter that stabbed the victim, the body itself, the... Wait a second. The body that was stabbed is there. But there's something else that should be there but isn't. This is it! Your Honor, the defense has evidence to counter the prosecution's claims.
Then please show it to us, Miss Sykes.
Look at this photo one more time.
There's no
There's a
blood.
grave contradiction contained within it.
A contradiction? Where?
Right here, Your Honor. Take that! Look at the area near the head of the victim. If we go by the prosecution's theory, then the victim would have fallen in the place he was stabbed. However, if that was the case, then there should be a pool of blood around the victim's head.
Yes, there should be.
But looking at this picture, what do you see?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
There's no blood at all!
And that's precisely the significant contradiction in that photo, Your Honor. An area that should be caked in blood has no trace of it whatsoever. If the crime scene lacks even a drop of blood to speak of, that casts significant doubt over whether the victim was stabbed there at all.
Indeed it does, Miss Sykes.
So, how could this be the case, you might ask? The answer is obvious. The victim's body was moved from somewhere else to the castle ruins. That's the only possibility.
Interesting claim, Golden Pixie.
Why does
and you
Luna keep
sounded
calling her
so
a Golden
triumphant
Pixie?
while making it, too. It's a shame that it's completely flawed.
Flawed? How?
True,
Flawed.
there doesn't appear to be any blood on the scene right now. But once I bring my next witness to the stand, that tune of
Another
yours will
witness?
surely change.
This other witness.
Is
Trying to see if it's who I think it is.
Very well. Detective, you may
Please
leave
tell
the
me it's
stand,
Silver Spoon.
but please remain in the courtroom. We
Or is
may
it
need
Diamond
your
Tiara?
opinion on other matters as they come up.
Of course, my lord.
Now then, let the prosecution's next witness take the stand.
Is it Diamond Tiara or Silver Spoon? Please tell me it's... Oh! Hi, Zakora.
Witness, please state your name and occupation for the record.
My name is Zakora, an apothecary. I make
Oh god,
miracles
she's...
in the Evergreen.
She's rhyming.
In the ever-free forest?
You're a zebra?
Oh, right. I guess I forgot to mention that, didn't I?
You and Apple Bloom both.
And you say you're an apothecary?
What's that
Yes,
mean?
Your Honor, I am indeed. Crafting potions is my creed. The forest creatures are bizarre, but their wonders are unmatched by far.
Interesting.
I just noticed that she's rhyming. Oh boy. I really hope that this doesn't mean what I think it might.
Let's get
What
back on topic.
do you mean?
Shall we? Witness, is it true that, on the night of the murder, you were the one who discovered and reported the victim's body?
Yes, quite sadly this is true. It was a scene most gruesome too.
Then please, give us your testimony
Props to the
in
VA for
relation to
Zakora.
this gruesome
This
discovery.
is some
Of
great
course,
content.
Your Honor, I shall speak. I'm sorry for this tale is bleak.
Oh god.
That evening, I was tending to the plants near my home. Two little ponies passed, heading towards the castle dome. For a while I waited, but return they did not, so I chose to head home at an agile trot. But soon I heard a strange far-off sound. I ran to where those ponies were bound. On my way, a small shadow my eyes did track, but it jumped away before I could react. Upon arrival, what met my gaze I'll not forget for all my days. A pony's body, still with blood around his head, turning earth to mud. Once I was sure that he was dead, to the police I quickly fled.
Can life cut me a break already? It's hard enough sifting through testimonies without having to decipher them first.
It must have been horrifying to see a dead body that night. But if the Everfree Forest is as dangerous as you say it is, well, wouldn't bodies be a common sight?
Most creatures are clean with the food they hunt, but a corpse in the open? A surprise to be blunt.
You saw blood on the ground around the body?
Of all the life that he had bled, a ring of red lay around his head.
Objection! That's impossible! We checked the area ourselves. Even this photograph shows there was no traces of blood. Your testimony is completely contradictory.
Do not point your rage at me! I have told you all I've seen.
Perhaps I can shed some light on this matter.
Do you have something that can explain this contradiction, Prosecutor Luna?
Of course, Your Honor. I'd look rather silly if I didn't.
Very well. Please explain for us.
As was just stated, this witness was the one who reported the body to the police. She accompanied them to the crime scene, and they found it in exactly the same state as she just described, the victim lying in a pool of his own blood. I have here a photograph of that very scene.
Another photograph that we haven't seen before.
The victim does appear to be lying in a pool of blood.
But why was it gone the next day?
That will become clear soon enough. First, the prosecution would like to submit this
That's a
evidence to
creepy
the
scene.
court, along with this photograph.
And what is this?
The other cape.
The emblem on it denotes it as belonging to the Cutie Mark Crusaders, the group of which the defendant, Scootaloo, is a member.
That must be the third cape that Private Eye said the police had taken for
Alright,
examination.
the third cape
As you can see in this earlier
used to drive the
photograph,
blood.
2 more of these capes,
But why?
as well as the fabric used to line their undersides, laid in this wagon attached to the scooter. It likely goes without saying, but this wagon also belongs to Scootaloo.
Great Wickery Stallions! Just
Great
what
Wickery
were the
Stallions.
defendants up to in that forest?
We'll cover that in a moment. For now, I would like to draw further attention to this cape here. Upon testing it, we found that it was absolutely drenched in the victim's blood.
The cape was covered in blood?
You mean someone tried to clean up the crime scene?
I can't imagine that to be the case. Going by where this cape was found, I'd say there's another more likely possibility.
Where was it found?
This cape was discovered underneath the victim's body. Specifically, under his head.
You mean that pool of blood Zecora saw?
It appears as though the little golden pixie has figured it out. When the police went to examine the blood, they discovered that it wasn't blood at all. It was actually this cape right here.
So, she was on the wrong track all along.
Looks like it. Yep.
Now do you understand, defense?
That's
When the
weird.
victim fell to the ground after being stabbed, he must have fallen on top of this cape. Any blood that
How did
seeped
that
from his
cape
wound
get
would
there?
have trailed down his face and been absorbed by the cloth. When the witness came across it, she mistook the cape for blood due to its red color. The fact that there was no blood at the scene is completely irrelevant. After all, it was the police themselves who removed it.
This can't be right.
Dragging things up like this for those two children is just cruel. Even if they're guilty, why can't the lawyers see that?
Order! Order! My word! It seems as if the defense's argument has been completely overturned.
Indeed it has, Your Honor. Despite what they claimed, it's clear that the body was never moved. The scene of the crime was undoubtedly at the foot of the bridge. The blood on this cape proves it. And, as luck would have it, I have one more piece of information that will crush the defense's rebuttal once and for all.
No, please, no more.
Please more.
Upon examining the area where the cape lay, thanks to forensic spell testing, we discovered traces of blood underneath the area around the victim's head.
Really?
It seems as if the cape absorbed more blood than it could handle, and some of it leaked through to the ground below.
That makes sense.
Further testing of this blood revealed that it belonged to the victim. Your Honor, I submit to you the photo of the victim's body, as well as the blood-stained cape as evidence.
Very well.
Alright,
the court accepts.
that's really good. That's good evidence. Would have loved to see that before. I would have also loved to see that before. That's some really good evidence to have.
Defense, care to share your thoughts on the matter?
Not if I don't want to get held in contempt of court.
It seems the Golden Pixie has been rendered speechless in the face of such
Why
irrefutable
is that? I
evidence.
thought she was really good at this.
Ignore her. Ignore everyone, okay? I'm not gonna lose. Time to get my brain in gear. There has to be something off in her theory. Lee
I
is
don't
saying
think
that
there's
the body
anything-
was never moved. The reason there was no blood at the scene is because it was absorbed by the cape. In that case, the victim would have stood up after being knocked over by turning. Afterwards, Scootaloo hit him in the head with the scooter, which knocked him to the ground again. Is there anything wrong with that series of events? Wait a second. If the victim was standing up when he was stabbed, then wouldn't it be impossible for—
Besides!
Yeah.
Do you, or do you not, have any objections to the
I guess.
prosecutor's theory?
Yeah, I brought that up earlier.
You bet I do.
How would
Feigning
Scootaloo
confidence will get you
be able to
nowhere,
stab him
defense.
with a singing scooter?
Your Honor, The defense would like to point out a flaw in the prosecution's theory.
Then get on with it!
Yes, Your Honor. The issue has to do with the victim's fatal stab wound being inflicted while the victim was standing upright. I would think stabbing an adult at such a height would be nearly impossible for a child. Correct?
Objection!
Objection.
You forget that the owner of that scooter is a Pegasus. What's stopping
She
him
can't
from
fly.
flying up and stabbing him that way?
Funny you should mention that. I heard something from the defendant in question yesterday that clears up this matter. Namely, the fact that Miss Scooter
She is disabled.
can't fly.
What?
She cannot fly. Is this true?
Order!
She should take
Order!
a swig
Prosecutor
of
Luna,
Zipporah's brew.
is this true? If Miss Scootaloo can't fly, then there's no way she could have stabbed a stallion in the head while he was standing.
Of course she couldn't.
Can I take you by surprise at least once in this trial?
Turning page.
What the defense has said is absolutely true. I have the medical report from Scootaloo's doctor right here. Contrary to Pegasus fillies her age, her wings haven't fully developed yet, and thus, she cannot fly.
But if you knew that, then why were you arguing that she could have stabbed somewhere she couldn't even reach?
Now, when did I ever claim that? All I ever claimed was that some pony stabbed him whilst he was standing upright. If it was impossible for Scootaloo to have done so, then that
Turning
leaves
page.
only one option, doesn't it?
Uh-oh.
Turning
Turning
page.
Page is a talented unicorn for his age, and levitation is a relatively simple spell to learn, even for colts and fillies. I'm sure he'd have no problem levitating the scooter up to his father's head and stabbing him with it.
Objection! Princess Luna, if you choose to claim that, then Scootaloo would have done nothing wrong. Am I right?
Princess Twilight, please explain what you mean.
It's simple, Your Honor. If Turning Page was the one who assaulted his father, and then proceeded to stab him in the head with the scooter, then Scootaloo would be completely innocent. Nothing but a bystander at most. Am I right, Princess Luna?
Yeah.
We shall see.
Why is Turning mad?
First, I think it's time for the defense's cross-examination of our witness. We've been putting that off for long enough now.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I kind of forgot that Zipporah was even here.
Very well. Let us
How did you
begin the
forget about your
cross-examination.
defense? Your defense, not defense. How do you forget about your witness?
That evening, I was tending to the plants near my home.
You were tending to plants?
Yes, my plants must grow up strong, lest the potion turn out wrong.
Including that poison joke in front of your home?
Yes, they're blooming but not quite grown, since only recently they were sown.
Are these plants of yours hard to find?
Many flowers around my home can't grow without the forest gnome. They're so rare that to meet my needs, I search the forest for their seeds. I tend to them both day and night, and harvest them
This
when the
must have
time
been
is
so
right. But poison
awful
joke
to
differs.
write.
It's often seen in a sproul, but at this time of year, it hardly grows at all.
So you scour the forest for plants. Did you happen to do that on the day of the murder?
I searched quite long that day. From dawn to dusk, I was away. When I got home with the seeds I sought, I tended to my garden plot.
Did you happen to visit the castle of the
nothing.
two sisters that day?
Yes, for along that castle's cliffside, sometimes rare flowers peek and hide. Sadly, when my search was done, I left without finding a single one.
Just to confirm, the body didn't happen to be at the foot of the bridge at that time, did it?
Yes.
I understand what you mean to say, but no, the body wasn't there
Wait,
that
what?
day.
We already know when the victim died. It was long after this witness was scouring the area for plants. Stop wasting our time with these pointless questions and move on.
Well, at least I got some information. Not exactly sure how helpful it was, though.
updated court record.
Please, continue.
So it belongs to Zecora?
Two little ponies passed, heading towards the castle dome.
Did you happen to see who they were?
Of the colt I had no clue, but the filly was Miss Scootaloo.
So you saw the children walking through the forest that night?
It surely was a curious sight. Two foals traveling solo that night. The forest danger is well known, so I thought, what are they doing alone?
They were going to settle the blackmail with Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. But I can't bring that up yet. It'll just be rejected outright.
These two ponies.
True.
Was there anything about them that caught your
It's not
eye?
important yet.
Scootaloo looked frightened, but that wasn't so strange. The forest scares any pony of any age. The colt was holding something thick, but not with his hooves, but with magic.
And what was that?
It was a bolt of fabric, rolled. The moonlight showed that it was gold.
That checks out with what Scootaloo said yesterday.
Blackmail.
Attorney Page offered to carry it for her just in case.
This matches what we found at the crime scene, as there was a roll of golden silk left behind in the wagon.
It would seem that way.
He also carried a weapon, a sword of solid wood. Given where they were going, I thought this was good.
And I'm assuming this sword was in one piece. Am I right?
Indeed. There wasn't a single crack. The sword appeared fully intact.
So the defendant's sword really was whole while heading to the scene.
Was
and
it?
it then broke when he used it to attack the victim.
Indeed.
Or was it
That's
used to
seeming
attack
more and
Diamond
more
Tiara?
likely.
I don't remember.
At some point here, I need to counter with how the sword really broke. But I'm still missing the evidence to support Turning's version of events. One way or another, I'm going to have
Unless
to find it
Turning's
soon.
lying.
Witness, please continue your testimony.
For a
Actually,
while I waited, but
what if he just
return they
wants
did
to
not.
be
So I
guilty?
chose to at home in an agile
He wants to be
trot.
guilty, and that's why he said that.
You just stood on the path and waited?
It would not have done to stand and wait, for time has an unchanging gait. Along the central path nearby, some plants were quite nearly bone dry. These I tended by the light of the moon, expecting the foals to come back soon.
How long were you waiting for them?
I worked from 9:45 to about 10:10, so a half hour had nearly passed by then.
And you just stood there, taking care of plants the whole time? Weren't you worried about two kids going so far into the forest by themselves?
Of course I was! Who wouldn't be? After all, they were in the Ever-Free. But for all that time there was no sound, nor any sign that they were found. On the path I kept one eye, in case they returned or another passed by.
I guess no one ever came then?
No one did, neither pony nor foal. I finished my work without seeing a soul.
So no one passed
So I
by
decided to head
the
home
pathway.
and rest, until I heard something that brought dread to my chest. But soon I heard a strange far-off sound. I ran to where those ponies were bound.
Noise?
It sounded unlike anything I'd ever heard. Not a bear, manticore, wolf, or bird. I could hear it echo around, a strangely loud metallic sound.
You mean like a clang?
It was a particular tone to hear, though clang does suit well with what reached my ear.
This again? First a fabric roll and now a clang? Any other similarities to the case from 2 days ago I should know about? Do you know when you heard this clang?
As soon as I heard it, I checked the time. It was 10:15 right on the dime.
And do you know where it came from?
I know not much to my shame. I could not tell from where it came. I remembered where the children were headed. The sound coming from there was a thought I dreaded.
So, what did you do then?
I made up my mind to find the foals. Reaching and protecting them were my goals. That plan was briefly sent awry when something weird caught my eye. On my way, A small shadow my eyes did track, but it jumped away before I could react.
A small shadow?
I wish I could describe it more than just weird, but it left as soon as it had appeared. Still, it was rather odd to me, so I included it with my testimony.
Do you know when and where you saw this shadow?
5 minutes after would be the when, so I'd wager it was 10:20 then. Where is difficult, I must confess, as Everfree has no address.
Here, witness. Point it out on this diagram.
You have my thanks, Princess Luna. Now let me fill this lacuna. Ah, yes, it was this spot right here. Or, at least, someplace near.
So just on the path?
I thought we were on the path towards collision, but then it jumped out of my line of vision.
For those unaware, the Everfree Forest is notorious for being absolutely pitch black at night. The intense tree cover prevents most forms of light from reaching the forest floor.
If Sakura was
However,
watching the entire
this incident occurred
time,
on the night of a full moon,
the only way that the others would be able to go is through the river, maybe?
The rest of the forest remained as pitch black as one would expect it to be.
Was there any detail about the shadow you can make out at all?
I'm thinking they went through the river.
Size? Anything?
Even in darkness, there was one distinct feature. At the very least, it seemed like a small creature.
Small? Like a child?
That's what I thought after what I'd seen. I looked for them, seeing only the forest green. I tried calling out, hoping they would return, but if they had responded, I could not discern. Perhaps they cared not to heed me well, or perhaps my voice drowned under the howling swell.
Howling?
Yes, and quite loudly, for one main reason. 'Tis now the Timberwolves' hunting season.
Hunting
Whenever
season?
they are on the prowl,
Oh no.
they raise their canine heads and howl. On that night they were easily heard, and they kept going undeterred. When they stopped, I do not know. By then I knew it was time to go.
What do you think made them howl?
Who is to say? Certainly not me. Into a Timberwolf's mind I cannot see. As I have told you, it's their hunting season. But truthfully, it could be for any reason.
Let's focus on what we can answer then, shall we? Witness, what did you see once you arrived at the scene?
Someone got chased. It's
Upon
probably down
arrival,
Tiara.
what met my gaze I'll not forget for all my days. A pony's body, still with blood around his head, turning earth to mud.
But it wasn't blood. It was a cape, right?
I'll admit my interpretation was flawed, but if you don't have a problem, don't needlessly prod.
You didn't check to make sure?
When I came upon the former guard of the law, his stillness shocked me. Not a breath did he draw. Creeping closer to his still build, I hoped my fears would be dashed by thrills. But my suspicions proved correct, as I realized when I checked his neck. No pulse of life-giving blood I found. He was as dead as winter's ground.
And what did you do after that?
That gruesome discovery sent me
awful.
reeling and gave me a terrible, sickening feeling. The moment I reclaimed my head, I glanced about, filled with dread. There were still the children I needed to find, and their fates were plaguing my mind. Thankfully, as I looked around, no other bodies could be found. Merely a scooter and a wagon lay amidst the frightening horde display.
There was no one nearby?
Perhaps that shadow, of which I caught sight, was one of the children in mid-flight. The other could have simply hid while farewell to that scene I bid. But that's just one thought in my mind,
can't fly.
since no other figures I did find.
You sure? There was nobody there at all? Maybe, hiding in the trees or something?
Objection! Continuing to press the issue won't yield a different answer, defense. I suggest you move on before you waste all of our time.
Well, excuse
The definition
me,
of insanity.
princess? Nothing
Expecting
wrong
a
with
different
double checking,
response.
now is there?
Witness, what happened after you found the body?
Once I was sure that he was dead, to the police I quickly fled.
That took like 30
Did you
minutes.
happen
or
to run
something.
into anyone on your way there?
While leaving the forest, I saw not a soul. It was, ironically, a more pleasant stroll.
I see. And how long did it take you to get to the police station?
Probably like 40 minutes.
I'm not sure. My sense of time dissolved amidst the thoughts of the crime.
Let's puzzle it out then, shall we? Witness, you claim to have left your house at 10:15. Is that correct?
Yes, it is exactly as you claim. I left right as the odd noise came.
From there, you headed to the scene of the crime, which we have confirmed was a roughly 15-minute walk.
Correct.
This means you arrived around 10:30.
All
Next,
right.
you examined the scene. How long would you say you stayed there?
Well, it doesn't feel right to make a guess. I'd say 5 minutes, more or less.
So you left at 10:35. The walk out of the ruins and then back through the forest is approximately 35 minutes. The police station itself is another 10 minutes away from the forest. This puts the witness arriving there around 11:20 that night.
Those are some very nice calculations, Prosecutor Luna.
That's really
Come
late.
on. Don't be that impressed.
The best is yet to come, Your Honor. I have here a report from that very station. It confirms that this witness notified the police of a body around that time.
Oh, we on time.
Order! Order!
Oof. That's
Great.
rough.
Instead of casting doubt on her testimony, I just made it even more reliable. Come on. Oh, this is just hopeless. There's not a single contradiction. What am I supposed to do?
Isn't her whole thing emotions?
I believe we have
Athena?
reached the end
Do-
of this
do
cross-examination.
Agreed,
Do
Your
emotions.
Honor. I don't think our golden pixie can take much more. Best we put her out of her misery now.
What about you, defense? Are you
Do
finished
your
with this
mood
testimony?
matrix if you
as
can.
far as the court can see, there
I
are no
hear it's
contradictions
amazing.
contained within it. As things stand, we will have to trust in what the witness has told us. If you have a rebuttal, Miss Sykes, now would be the time to give it.
Yeah, sure. I'll get right on it with a whole lot of nothing I can even say. Twilight? Do you have any ideas?
Well, just one.
And I was
But-
calling her
Great.
useless.
What is it?
I don't think it's a good idea, though.
Well, just tell it to me anyway. We can decide together.
I don't think we have the time for that, Athena. Let's just keep following the flow of the trial. Maybe something else will come up later that we can attack.
No, we can't just let this slide. This testimony is too damaging. We have to strike now.
I understand that, Athena. I do. But right now, I don't think there's anything more we can do.
But we can't just give up, Twilight. You said you'd try and help me in any way you could. If you have an idea for how to get us out of this mess, even if it's awful, you have to tell me. Otherwise, we'll lose.
I know that. But I can't let you do this. I've seen it happen before, and it's not worth it. There has to be another way.
There is no other way. We need to do something right now. We can't let Scootaloo or Turning Page down.
I'm not saying we should give up. I'm just saying that
Unless you two are interested in sharing with the court what you are squabbling about, I believe it is time we moved on.
It's Sweetie Belle, right?
I can't let this
Sweetie
happen.
Belle's the
If I let
suspicious
this
one.
testimony stand, I'll never be able to recover from
Sweetie
it.
Belle's the
Very
suspicious
well.
child.
Witness, thank you for your time. You may...
Objection! Wait, hold on. There's something about the witness's testimony that I find strange.
Oh, really now? Please, do tell.
Athena, stop!
Sorry, Twilight, but I can't just sit and wait for an opportunity to show itself. I have to knock this testimony down now.
Why is
This better
Twilight
not be
being
a bluff, Miss
so
Sykes.
It is a
Of course
bluff.
it isn't, Your Honor.
It's always a bluff.
Totally is!
Shut up, Widget.
Talking to yourself, are we?
Don't let them distract you, Athena. If Twilight doesn't want to help me,
Twilight doesn't want to
then
help.
I'll just have to figure this out by
Twilight's
myself.
Twilight's the killer all along.
There aren't any contradictions or flaws. What now? What would Mr. Wright do here? He'd turn his thinking around. Think outside of the box. If I
What about
can't
that
cast
child?
doubt on the testimony itself, then what if I just cast doubt on the one testifying? Is there a way to do that?
Miss Sykes, I've had enough of you wasting this court's time. Present your rebuttal, or let us move on.
Yes, Your Honor. Here goes nothing. So, actually, the previous testimony didn't have any noticeable contradictions in it.
But is that not what we've been saying this whole time?
Yes, but, well, what if we think about this another way?
Another way?
Athena.
According to the testimony, Zecora saw Scootaloo and Turning Page headed towards the crime scene. She heard a noise and headed there herself.
Yeah, what is that
On the
noise?
way, she came across the two running away from the scene, and shortly afterwards, she arrived on the site.
And right there, she found the dead body of one royal order. I see no point in us repeating all of this.
Well, let's think about that last point for a minute. As we established earlier, the victim suffered both a blow to the side and a stab to the head. What's more, we know for a fact that after the victim was knocked to the ground, he managed to get back up again.
Quite so. Our current theory is that Turning Page was the one who hit him, using his sword. However, if he was killed right at that moment, the stab wound would be on the opposite side of his head. Therefore, he must have had an opportunity to stand upright before being stabbed and falling over again.
Right. But as was pointed out earlier, Scootaloo could not have been the one to inflict the fatal wound. She can't fly, so she wouldn't have been able to stab Royal Order in the head after he stood up.
Which leads us to the conclusion that it must have been Turning Page.
Turning
He used
Page.
his magic to stab the victim with the scooter. There wasn't anyone else on the scene who could have done it, after all.
This is it. Now's my chance. I may not personally believe what I'm about to say, but I don't have a choice now. My hand's been forced. But there
Sweetie Belle?
was someone on the scene, actually. After Scootaloo and Turning Page fled, someone else arrived and had the perfect opportunity to murder the victim.
Athena, please.
Wait, you
Are you-
saying...
Defense?
What is Twilight going?
Let's assume that Turning Page really did hit his father, and he fell to the ground.
Are they saying
Now,
that
at
Sweetie Belle
point,
did it?
Who's to say Scootaloo and Turning didn't flee right then, without killing him?
Then that would mean the one who showed up on the scene after they left would have...
Exactly. Given this scenario, it's entirely possible that our witness, Miss Zecora, is
Really,
Royal Order's
Athena?
true killer. What?
Really, Athena? Are you? Why are you pointing to Zecora?
Order in the court!
Why not the other
Miss
child?
Sykes, are you saying that her whole testimony was one giant lie made to cover up her crime?
Not necessarily everything. Just the part where she claimed to have stumbled across the dead body. The defense believes that, instead of finding Royal Order dead, Zecora came across him as he was getting up. She then took the scooter that was left on the scene and stabbed him in the head.
Why would she do
Afterwards,
that?
She
Sykes,
reported
why
the
are
body
you
to
doing
the
this?
police, claiming he was already dead when she found him.
That is a ridiculous accusation! What could possibly be my motivation?
Turning and Scootaloo don't have motives either. Is it really that much of a stretch to suspect you as well? Your Honor, I may not have any evidence to back up this claim, but you can't deny it is a possibility. As such, we shouldn't take stock in any of this witness's testimony.
It's true. The yellow attorney brings up a good point. Would the court really do that, though?
No, she
Dunno.
wouldn't.
But hey, if she's right, that means those two kids are innocent.
Be still. Oh gosh. Oh, she's
You
mad.
naive child!
Child?
Prosecutor Luna, please. There will be no insults in my courtroom.
For one who knows not the weight of her words, I can't think of a better comparison.
Hey! What gives? I was just...
You intend to cast doubt on the witness in order to save your own clients. Yet, to do so, you accuse her of committing the crime herself.
Well, what else was I supposed to do? That testimony
was not at all conclusive.
Huh?
The witness never saw who the killer was. She didn't even clearly see who was running away from the scene.
But that's what you and Your Honor were assuming.
And it's your job to point out why that assumption is flawed, and demand further evidence and testimony for the prosecution to support their case. But instead of doing that, you have openly accused this witness. You have dirtied not just her name, but if you're wrong, yours as well. And you, ponies of the gallery, you who would be so quick to suspect this poor creature on nothing but a baseless theory. Shame on you all! Is this the kind of harmony Equestria seeks to share with the world?
Order! Order! That's enough, Prosecutor Luna!
Stating straight facts.
Disparaging remark towards Miss Sykes or the gallery, and I'll have you held in contempt of court!
My apologies, Your Honor.
Luna's spitting
Say
straight
what
facts.
you want, Prosecutor Luna. But my theory doesn't contradict any of the evidence or testimony presented in this trial. As long as that remains true, I'm free to continue asserting it.
Very well. If that's the path you choose, so be it. I wonder if your co-counsel feels the same way, though.
I'm
And
sorry,
Twilight's
Twilight,
pissed.
but it's too late for me to back down.
Nevertheless, you shan't be relying on that theory for much longer. If I can't convince you to simply abandon it, then I'll just force you to go against it.
What do you mean? Uh-oh. I don't like the sound of this.
I love the
You
sound of
mentioned
this.
motive a minute ago, did you not? The motive that Scootaloo and Turning Page lacked? It's about time we discussed that, don't you think? So bring out that letter you received yesterday.
Letter?
The blackmail letter. I know you have it. Show it to the court. Now.
Darn it. What does she know about the blackmail? Did Scootaloo or Turning tell her?
Defense? What's this about a blackmail letter?
Your Honor, it's this right here. Scootaloo and her friends, the Cutie Mark Crusaders, received it yesterday afternoon. Their scooter, wagon, and capes were all stolen by some pony. To get them back, they'd have to bring the blackmailer a roll of golden silk.
Those items all sound familiar.
They should, Your Honor.
They were
All
at the
of
crime
these
scene.
items were accounted for at the crime scene.
You're right. But why would that be?
Read the letter yourself, and I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Oh, the location of the blackmail. It's the same place where the murder occurred.
Precisely, Your Honor. Now, we finally know why the defendants were in the forest in the first place. They went to settle this deal with their blackmailer.
And that their blackmailer was not
And I
the
guess
father.
this would mean Turning Page is a member of these Cutie Mark Crusaders?
Not exactly, Your Honor. The two had met for the first time earlier that day. They became quick friends over the course of an afternoon.
But then, why did Mr. Page get involved with the blackmail?
He's
During
a
her
lover
interrogation,
boy.
the defendant, Scootaloo, mentioned that she was backed into a corner when her friends decided against following the orders they were given. She decided, instead, to ask her newfound friend, Turning Page, to help her retrieve what had been taken. The two conspired to break into and steal from Carousel Boutique in order to acquire the golden silk the blackmailer asked for.
These two kids broke into a store?
Oh, this doesn't look good.
It's a store of a friend. I'm sure it's fine.
They proceeded to enter the forest and made their way to the scene where the blackmailer was waiting.
And this blackmailer, who were they?
I can answer that, Your Honor. The defense believes
Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon.
Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon.
Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon?
Here we go.
An infamous pair of bullies whom the Crusaders are unfortunately well acquainted with. They constantly harass the group for not having their cutie marks yet, calling them names like blank flanks.
Bullies? How awful!
There'll be no bullying.
There'll be no bullying on my
You go get him, Judge.
Pretty content watching me get insulted, though. There's more, Your Honor. You see, yesterday when we spoke to Scootaloo at the detention center, we learned that an altercation between the Crusaders and these bullies occurred on the day of the murder. During that exchange, Turning Page came to their aid and chased the bullies off. This was where Scootaloo and Turning Page first met, and later, spent time getting to know each other.
And I assume this is somehow related to the blackmail letter?
Precisely, Your Honor. The two fillies were angry that their encounter with the Crusaders ended with them getting told
Stuff
off.
that we already know.
So they blackmailed them in retaliation. If you look at the top of the letter, you'll see that it begins with, "Hey there, blank flanks." The only ponies who would address the Crusaders as such are these bullies. This serves as definitive proof that the ponies who wrote the blackmail letter are none other than Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon.
Objection! Unfortunately, defense, that is not a wholly concrete possibility.
What do you mean, Luna?
But the insult
could easily be a red herring by the author of the note. These fillies are not the only ones who are aware of that particular taunt. After all, if these fillies are as infamous as you say they are, then any pony familiar with them would know that they are fond of the term blank flank. It's hardly proof, defense. Suppose Your Honor began to refer to you as Golden Pixie. Would that make him me?
Well, would it, Golden Pixie?
Oh, come
I
on.
very much would not mind being considered a princess, you know.
I'd rather not answer that, Your Honor.
But now, let us turn our attention to the letter itself. I'm sure everyone can see that this note
Come
is
on,
written
Judge.
entirely
Why'd
in
you gotta
letters
do
cut
that?
out from a magazine. As a result, it is impossible to perform any sort of writing analysis. However, that doesn't mean we can't prove who the author of this note is.
How?
If we could find the magazines that these letters were cut out from, it'd be a simple matter of matching the cuts on the letters to the holes in the magazines.
Yeah, but we don't have those magazines.
Are you sure about that?
Are those?
What?
I have here 2 magazines with several letters cut out from many different pages. If the court would be so kind, I'd like to request some time for the police to analyze the letters on the note and the empty spaces in the magazines. If we get a match, then we'll know for a fact that the blackmail letter was written using these magazines.
Very well.
Why?
The court
Why is
grants
that
the
PNG being
prosecution's
used, and why?
Yes, my lord.
Please take this letter and these magazines and have an analysis performed. Try to have it done in 30 minutes if you can.
Certainly, my lord.
As we all know, Private Eye has an eye for puzzles.
They were just delivered, Your Honor.
And what's the conclusion?
Private Eye.
The letters on
and
the
puzzles.
blackmail note match the shape of the cuts in the magazines.
What does that even prove?
I see. So it has been proven how the blackmail letter was written. But I fail to see how this
I fail to
helps,
understand why this
prosecutor.
helps either.
Rest assured, Your Honor, we did not simply pick those magazines up off the street or find them in a dumpster.
You must have found them in either Diamond or Silver's house, right?
The magazines that were used to write the blackmail letter were found in the home of Royal Order.
What?
Order in the court! Prosecutor Luna, are you saying that the one behind the blackmail, Was the victim himself?
At the site of the blackmail,
That
it
makes
was
no
his body
sense.
that remained after Scootaloo and Turning Page fled the scene. Additionally, the magazines used to write the blackmail letter were found in his home. It certainly doesn't look good for him.
I still can't get over the magazine cover. Also, what about the mother?
Remember the Royal Guard was a blackmailer?
I can't believe it. I won't believe it even.
But if you think about it, it does seem to line up.
That doesn't make sense.
Prosecutor Luna, you can't seriously be suggesting that Royal Order is the blackmailer. It doesn't make any sense.
What do you mean by that, Princess Twilight?
Royal Order was in Canterlot on the eve of the murder. He would not have been able to steal the Crusaders' belongings, nor send them the blackmail letter. Those events transpired much earlier in the day. Unless the prosecution can explain how he absconded with the Crusaders' things while in Canterlot, it's impossible.
And Royal Order
for
would
him to
not
the
be able
blackmailer.
to know about the whole blank blank thing.
Well then, Prosecutor Luna, what do you say to that?
The defense is, of course, correct, Your Honor. Given the fact he was in Canterlot when the theft occurred, Royal Order could not be the blackmailer. However, I don't recall ever asserting that he was.
The mother
Miss
is the
Sparkle merely
blackmailer.
assumed that would be my argument, and has seemingly overlooked the fatal implication this evidence actually holds.
What?
Royal Order was not around to set up this whole blackmailing scheme, yet the fact remains that these magazines were discovered in his home. This can only
So
mean
is it
that the
Turning Page?
perpetrator of this blackmailing must be some pony else who lives there. We know
Turning
for a
Page
fact
or
it
his
can't
mother.
be Turning, given that he went with Scootaloo into the forest to settle the deal. That leaves us with only one other possibility.
His mother.
You don't mean...
His mother.
The perpetrator can only be the victim's wife, Miss Fair Devotion.
What?
Yes! The plot thickens.
Order! Order in the court! Prosecutor Luna, are you sure? That's the defendant's own mother!
I am,
His own
Your
mother.
Honor, as much as it pains me to say. But remember, Turning Page was not the target of the blackmail. The Crusaders, and by extension Scootaloo, were. Turning simply accompanied her into the forest. In which case, it's not so unthinkable that his mother could very well have been behind the whole thing.
Well, why would she do that?
This is ridiculous. Why would Miss Devotion want to blackmail the Crusaders?
Because she needed to.
She needed to?
You explained it to us earlier, Defense, did you not? Turning Page confronted two bullies earlier that day. Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. He intervened whilst they were harassing the Crusaders. However,
I just love,
you left
I
out
just
the
love
most
those two
important
so much.
detail.
They're cute.
What detail?
That Turning's attack resulted in the fillies' dresses getting ruined. Now tell me, Golden Pixie, what do you suppose happened afterwards?
Afterwards?
There's plenty more to this story than what has been told. Luckily, thanks to our interrogation of Miss Devotion, we are able to shed light on this matter.
Please explain, Prosecutor.
According to Fair Devotion, Diamond Tiara's mother, Spoiled Rich, met with her later that day, after hearing about the incident from her daughter. Those dresses Turning Page dirty were custom made and quite expensive. So, of course, Mrs. Rich was rather upset to hear about what had happened to them. Seeing as how the fault lay with her son, Spoiled demanded that Miss Devotion pay back the money in compensation.
And she agreed to that. Why?
Once again, out of necessity. Mrs. Rich happens to be the president of the Ponyville School Board. Miss Devotion feared that, if she didn't agree, Mrs. Rich would ensure that she would never work at the school again.
Dang.
Horrible.
But now I'm
School
sure you can
board
see why Miss
spoiled.
Devotion would need to get her hands
Oh
on
my
a great deal
gosh.
of money quickly.
But the blackmail letter didn't ask for money. It asked for the fabric.
Indeed it did. Now, why, Miss Sparkle, would that be the case?
Why? Well, because...
Like I said, it takes a long time to make, and it costs a lot of money.
Wow.
The fabric would fetch a pretty high price if sold to the right pony?
Exactly. The value of that golden silk was brought up during the fight between the kids. Turning must have overheard what was said, and recounted the details to his mother when she confronted him. And that,
He wouldn't do that,
ladies and
though.
gentle colts, is precisely what gave Miss
No,
Devotion
it's the
idea
opposite.
to blackmail
It's the
Kingdom
opposite.
Crusaders.
It would be
She
the.
did it in order to pay off spoiled rich.
Okay, but what if it's
What
the
do
other
you
way
think is
around?
happening right now? Luna somehow opened up the possibility that Fair Devotion
Diamond.
wrote the
What if
blackmail
Diamond
letter.
Tiara? Diamond Tiara had to be the
Presented
one
a
to.
very convincing argument, Prosecutor. But
To
there's
tell her
still
mother,
one thing
not
that
the other way
troubles
around.
me.
And what would that be, Your Honor?
Earlier, you said that you think Royal Order is somehow involved in the blackmail. But it's been proven that he wasn't around to steal the Cutie Mark Crusaders' effects or send the letter. So, how can that be?
There's no big mystery here, Your Honor. It's easy to imagine that Miss Devotion and her husband were working together.
Working together? But I thought Mr. Order had gone into that forest to look for his son.
So Miss Devotion claims, but the prosecution sees no reason to trust her word anymore. The instant these magazines were matched with this blackmail letter, all of her testimony became highly suspect.
You're quite right. The magazines leave little room for doubt in regards to who the blackmailer was.
Which
It
means
leaves a
they
lot of
also
doubt.
cast doubt on her explanation for Mr. Order's movements. Taking that into account, we must seek another explanation for why he went into the forest. Luckily, there is a rather simple one. Perhaps, as soon as Mr. Order got home, Miss Devotion explained the whole situation to him.
Why would she
Armed with the
explain
knowledge
the
of the blackmailing
situation to
and
him?
the fabric roll, he would have left immediately for the castle. That would be the real reason why Royal Order went into the forest that night. He intended to act as the recipient for the blackmail.
Why?
And thus, we arrive at the heart of the matter. The motive for the murder. I don't think we could ever truly know what happened at the foot of the bridge that night. However, if Mr. Order was the recipient for the exchange, then we can make a few inferences. It could be as simple as the negotiations going south, or it could be that learning what his father was doing infuriated Turning to the point of attacking him. Whichever scenario you choose, the basic facts remain the same. Royal Order was present at the scene of the blackmail and died there, murdered. The only ones who could have done it are the only two who were at the scene at the time, Scootaloo and Turning Page. However,
And the
as the
others.
defense has previously demonstrated,
Because the
it'd be rather
glass.
difficult for Scootaloo to be involved in this crime, given her inability to fly and the fact that the victim was killed while standing. Therefore, the prosecution is willing to cut the defense a deal here.
What is it?
Concede that Turning Page is guilty of murdering his father, and will be willing to let Scootaloo off without a single charge. The choice is yours, Golden Pixie.
I take that smack talk from. Oh, hi, Turning Page.
Defend me if you must. But just know that if I think things start to look bad, I won't hesitate to confess if it means saving her.
He's going to confess. I have to stop him. Objection! Turning, don't do this! We don't have to give up yet!
Thank you for fighting so hard for us, Miss Sykes. But this is honestly for the best.
Objection! No! It's not. I promised you both. I'd save the two of you together!
But there's no way you can do that now, can you? And besides, this is...
Just tell me one thing, Turning. Who was it that you met at the bridge? Was it really your father?
No.
So I was right then. It was Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon.
Well, yes, it was. But that's...
Ha! See, Luna? The defendant just disproved your whole theory.
Objection! Yes, congratulations, my dear Golden Pixie. You can now add perjury to the defendant's list of charges.
How is that perjury? That's just his words.
What if he's telling the truth, Prosecutor Luna?
In that case, defense, let's clear this matter up once and for all.
Where did Zakora go? Just yeeted off the face of the planet.
It's all right, Turning Page. Don't forget what I told you before this all started. You and Scootaloo have nothing to worry about. I promise. Surely, Miss Sykes can promise you the same?
Is she? Yes, she's trying to help them. Of course! That explains all those hints from before. And why she got so mad when I accused Zakora, too.
Why is she trying to help?
There's no way I can do this by myself. She wants to help, and I need it.
Why does it need it?
Accidenti! I'm never gonna get any better if I keep getting bailed out like this. But I need to do something. Just this once, okay? Just this once. Yes, Prosecutor Luna. I can indeed.
Glad to see we're on the same page, then.
All right.
Why is Luna helping? And why is she at prosecution side in the first place?
I'm not quite sure I understand what just happened.
Then allow me to summarize for you, Your Honor. The prosecution claims that the orchestrator of the blackmailing deal was Fair Devotion. We claim this because of the magazines found in her home. These, as previously proven, were used to create the blackmail letter. We also claim that Miss Devotion sent her husband, Royal Order, to the scene for the exchange. He was subsequently killed by one or both of the ponies who arrived to settle the deal, Scootaloo and Turning Page.
But he wasn't there to receive anything.
That the orchestrators of the blackmail were two fillies the Cutie Mark Crusaders had encountered earlier in the day, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. Their main evidence is what Turning has just said, that the ponies he and Scootaloo met at the bridge that night were, in fact, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. Defense, I hardly need to explain to you that testimony from the defendant is not entirely reliable.
Yeah, exactly. It's not reliable.
Not at all, Prosecutor Luna.
Then, by all means, do prove it to us. Prove that the one the defendants met at the crime scene was not Royal Order, but instead, those two fillies.
If I'm right that she's helping, then I have to believe that the evidence I need has already been shown. Unfortunately, all of the evidence relating to the blackmail seems to point directly at Miss Devotion.
It's not directly at Miss Devotion.
Instead of trying to prove who the blackmailer was, I should focus on figuring out everyone's movements that night.
Yeah, that's the best course of action.
The blackmailers, it
I would
should
do
be
the same
enough to bring
thing.
those two fillies to the stand. Prosecutor Luna, I have a question for you. How do you think the victim made it to the scene of the blackmail?
Ah, now we're asking the real questions. The prosecution is under the assumption that the victim would have wanted to get there as quickly as possible. Thus, he likely would have teleported as far as we know he could go, the crossroads, and simply walked the rest of the way. Simple, no?
Objection! Unfortunately, Prosecutor Luna, that's not possible.
Why not, defense?
Turning, Scootaloo?
Yes, Miss Sykes?
Remind me once again at what time the two of you entered the forest.
It was around 9:25. I'm pretty sure.
And while you were walking through the forest, did you ever come across anyone?
No.
I don't think so.
Prosecutor Luna, Can you remind the court what time the victim left his house?
As we heard from Detective I's testimony, it was 9:30.
And do you know how long it takes to reach the crossroads from the forest entrance?
About 5 minutes.
Precisely. And that clears it all up then, doesn't it?
I'm not following
I'm
either.
afraid I'm not following.
The prosecution claims that Royal Order teleported himself to the crossroads as soon as he left his house. In other words, at 9:30. Additionally, we've just confirmed that Turning and Scootaloo entered the forest at 9:25. After a 5-minute walk, they would have reached the crossroads at 9:30.
So at the exact same time?
In conclusion, the victim couldn't have teleported to the crossroads immediately after leaving his house, because if he did, he would have appeared right in front of the defendants.
Okay, but he can't really prove that. Also, why is Zecora still
Very
there?
impressive, Golden Pixie. You've proven that Royal Order couldn't have been walking ahead of the defendants. But what's preventing him from having followed behind them? It might mean he was a little late to the meeting, but that alone doesn't make it an impossibility. Unless you have proof to the contrary, defense?
Is something wrong, Miss Sykes? You look like you've come to a terrible realization.
He's right. I have. And you just stood there, taking care of plants the whole time? Weren't you worried about 2 kids going so far into the forest by themselves?
Of course I was. Who wouldn't be? After all, they were in the Everfree. But for all that
What's
time,
this all
there was
about?
no sound, nor any sign that they were found. On the path I cut one eye. in
Why are
case
we
they were
going back
trying
to
or
this
another
testimony?
passed by.
I guess no one ever came then?
No one did, neither pony nor colt.
Oh,
I
because he
fixed
had to
my work without
teleport.
seeing a soul.
He had to teleport.
The contradiction is obvious. But unless I retract my earlier accusation, it won't be credible.
Defense, what have you hit upon?
So, this is what Luna meant when she said she'd force me to abandon that theory. The only reason I made it was to remove that damaging testimony from the court's consideration. But now it's coming back to bite us. No, to bite me. This must have been what Twilight wanted to warn me about. She knew this could happen.
Well, Golden Pixie, don't keep me waiting.
Once again, I don't think I have much choice. No, that's not right. Not again. This isn't like before, when I could have let it go. This time I really have no choice. I have to do this. And Luna knows it. If she isn't out for blood, then letting Zecora's testimony stand shouldn't be much of a problem, regardless of how much it hurts our case. At this point, that's what I have to believe. Your Honor,
Yes, Miss Sykes?
before the defense makes its next argument, we would like to retract our accusation of Miss Zecora.
Defense, did I hear that right? You wish to retract your accusation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are they even allowed to do that?
I'll have you know, Miss Sykes, that I don't take kindly to fruitless accusations. I'm
Penalty.
afraid I'll have to hold you in contempt of court as punishment.
Contempt! Objection! The prosecution objects to the defense being held in contempt.
What?
You do?
We can see that our opponent is merely a fledgling attorney, still trying to find her footing. Such inexperience can easily lead to impulsive decisions.
Prosecutor Luna.
Even so, in this line of work, such actions cannot be overlooked, Prosecutor Luna. They can
Penalty.
easily lead to the destruction of an innocent life. As such, I feel punishment is necessary here.
I understand, Your Honor. In that case, why don't we leave that decision up to the one whose life was targeted? If she wishes for the defense to be punished, then the prosecution will stand down.
Very well. Witness,
Zakora.
It's alright, Miss Sakura. You don't have to say anything. If you want to see me get punished, I won't blame you. What I did was rash and dumb. I'm just really new at this. Twilight here tried to stop me, but I didn't listen to her. As a result, I put you in danger. Even though I knew I had no real reason to suspect you of anything. Especially when a certain feeling made me aware you'd never murder any pony.
Apple blue. That's some nipples.
I can't expect you to forgive me, but I just wanted the chance to say I'm sorry.
I understand what you meant to do, saving both Turning and Scootaloo. While your accusation has hurt my pride, I, for one, will take it in stride. You and I desire the same.
Zakora is one
to see those two
powerful
young defendants set
zebra.
free. You evidently still have much to learn, but punishment from me you have not earned.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sakura.
The court acknowledges the witness's decision. The defense shall not be held in contempt. However, Miss Sykes, I better not see any more rash accusations come from you again. If I do, you will be penalized and held in contempt.
Penalized?
Regardless
You mean
of what the
penalized?
prosecution or witnesses may say.
Understood, Your Honor.
I'm glad we've cleared up that matter. So now let's return to the
I
topic.
thought Athena was.
The prosecution still believes
I
that
thought
Royal
Athena
Order
was
the recipient
good at
of the
this.
blackmail exchange. The defense has
She
proven,
has to
however,
take slack from
that
Luna,
he
though.
could not have arrived at the scene
I
prior
don't know how
to
to feel about
defendant.
this.
Our amended theory is that he followed behind the children as they made their way through the forest. Defense, do you have any objections to this interpretation?
I do.
Then, by all means, state them here and now.
It all relies on Zakura's witness testimony. If you recall, she claimed to have kept an eye on the forest path ever since she saw Turning and Scootaloo pass. She continued watching until 10:10, when she finally retired for the evening. During that entire time, she didn't see any pony following behind the defendants. That means the victim
I
couldn't
just
have
realized they're
passed by
saying
during
any
that
pony
time frame.
without any remorse.
Objection! Need I suggest the obvious? Mr. Order could have easily waited until Zakora had stopped watching the path before continuing onwards. Or better yet, he could have simply walked off the path and through the woods
Coulda, woulda,
himself
shoulda.
using an illumination spell.
Objection! But that doesn't make any sense either. There's no way he could have known when Zakora would leave. Even if, for whatever reason, he did wait, it takes about 15 minutes to reach the scene from Zakora's hut anyway. He'd be arriving at the castle no later than 10:25. But we know Turning and Scootaloo had likely left the castle by that time. Zakora spotted one of them in the form of a small shadow at 10:20. There would have been no chance for negotiations to even occur, let alone turn sour.
And the chance of using an illumination spell?
Highly unlikely. The Everfree Forest is pitch black at night. Under the cover of trees, you'd need a very strong source of light to find your way through. A light that strong in a place that dark would no doubt have caught Zakora's attention, no matter where it came from.
It is her home at
There's
night.
no way I would have missed a light, and I did not see one at all that night.
Which leads us to only one conclusion. Royal Order could not have followed behind the defendants, nor made it to the scene ahead of them. Thus, Royal Order could not have been involved in the blackmail.
Yeah. obviously. He could have teleported, but even then, I don't know. Is there any evidence to support
And with
that he didn't
the motive
teleport?
for murder has completely disappeared.
Indeed. It would seem as if the prosecution's proposal no longer holds water. What say you in response, Prosecutor Luna?
Simply this, Your Honor. Bravo, Miss Sykes. That was a fantastic rebuttal.
Oh, thanks?
Why, Luna?
I could say
Why
the
are you
same thing
helping
to
her?
you, given how much you helped.
It's too early for thanks, Golden Pixie.
Oh boy, back to the nickname already.
Your assertions are solid and well-founded, but unfortunately, they are far from impregnable.
Ooh, what do you mean?
Your claims hold strong only so long as the two assumptions they're based on are true.
What assumptions?
The first is the small shadow Miss Sakura saw. We can't know for certain it was related to these kids. If it's not, then we have no way of knowing exactly when they left the scene. In that instance, it would be more than possible for Royal Order to arrive late at the scene and still meet the defendants there.
Well, why don't we ask them now?
Objection!
Objection.
Any testimony they could offer on this matter would be heavily influenced by your own remarks, defense. They could easily claim to agree with your statements in order to support your story. And that would get us nowhere.
That may be true, but I'd still like to hear what they have to say regardless.
We're using our right to remain silent here.
Yeah.
What? Why?
If they told you, Golden Pixie, would that not defeat the entire purpose of the right?
You're right. Fine then. What's the second assumption?
Your initial rebuttal was based on the fact that Royal Order left his house at the specified time of 9:30. However, this information came from Miss Devotion, whose testimony is questionable. Can we really trust
Does
the
she have a
time she
testimony?
gave for when her husband left home? And finally, there's one last problem with your rebuttal.
There's still more.
Even if we grant that those assumptions are true, your arguments utilize several different measurements of time in order to make your point stand. These measurements are but estimates based on a pony's gait. Depending on the difference in size, walking speed, and other varying factors, there's always going to be a slight difference in how quickly or slowly one can travel from point A to point B. So, even though it may seem as though Royal
I don't
Order would have
remember a
teleported
testimony.
into the crossroads right before the defendant's eyes, it's still entirely possible that he could have done so before the two ever reached the area. So what's your next move going to be, defense?
I guess it's
I'll grant you managed to cast
a
doubt
written
on
testimony,
Royal
I
Order
guess.
acting as the blackmail recipient, but it still hasn't been proven to be false just yet. As long as we have no reason to doubt that Miss Devotion was the one behind the blackmail, it'll be difficult to refute this point.
But she's not the one behind the blackmail. Turning said it himself. The ponies he and Scootaloo met at the castle were Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon.
And yet, no evidence has been submitted which would suggest that either Diamond Tiara or Silver Spoon were even at the scene of
The broken
crime.
glass.
We only have the defendant's words, which cannot be fully trusted.
Well,
Broken glass.
I know for a fact that Diamond and Silver were the ones who made the blackmail letter. They have to be the ones who were there that night. But how am I supposed to prove that if I can't even use Scootaloo and Turning's own words? If I'm right about Luna, the evidence to prove it must exist. But I've never even seen these kids before. How am I supposed to be able to— Objection!
Hi, Twilight.
Twilight? You're
right, Prosecutor Luna. Looking through the evidence, there's nothing that can yet prove our claim. Which is why the defense is prepared to submit new evidence.
You are?
We are, Athena.
What evidence?
Then by all means.
Oh, are they talking about the
present
broken
this evidence
glass?
to us, Miss Sparkle.
Gladly, Your Honor.
Broken glass? Yes, the broken glass.
Are those pieces of glass?
In a sense,
From the
Your
glasses.
Honor, but not quite. These glass fragments were found at the scene of the crime. However, the investigation concluded that they were actually a broken pair of nearsighted glasses.
Glasses?
Exactly. Now, if you run through the profiles of every single pony involved in this case so far,
No one wears
you'll notice
glasses?
that they all share a distinct characteristic. Not a single one of them wears glasses.
What? Prosecutor Luna, is this true?
It is, Your Honor.
That would, of course, make these shards of glass seem irrelevant to the case. However, if we take into account Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon,
How is
then story
Athena
changes.
even...
For you see, one of them does
How is
wear glasses on
Athena
a regular
a defense attorney if she can't see these obvious contradictions? Why does she need help? Please explain to me.
Many ponies wear glasses, Miss Sparkle. So I'm afraid that alone isn't enough
Objection.
to substantiate
No
my
one goes
claim.
into the
Do
forest.
you have any proof that those shards of glass are from Miss Spoon's glasses specifically?
No one goes into the
Unfortunately,
forest.
I don't. But it shouldn't be hard to figure out what the prescribed measurements of her glasses are. All we need to do is hear from her optometrist, and then we—
Objection! You wish to invade a child's privacy on nothing but an educated guess? You have no proof that these glasses were even broken on the night of the murder. For all you know, they could have been broken the day before, or the day before that. If you want us to collect a statement from the doctor, you'll first need to show us that those shards are, beyond reasonable doubt, related to the crime in question.
Are they... Is there anything?
Very well. I'll do just that. Athena?
What is it? What is it?
So much for no more getting bailed out. Twilight's doing all the work for us. If I hadn't jumped the gun with accusing Zecora...
Athena?
Yeah?
We're going to have to make a gamble here.
What do you mean?
Apart from hearing from Turning and Scootaloo, there's only one way we can prove when those glasses were broken. Seeing how Luna won't accept either of their words, our only hope is that she can recall in enough detail what she saw that day.
She... You mean...
Yes, but before I do this, I just want to make sure you're okay with it.
At this point, you seem to know far better than me how to handle this. Go ahead.
So much for her self-esteem.
Defense! Present your evidence to the court now!
What is this
can
evidence?
prove the connection these glass shards have with this case?
I'm guessing
Your Honor,
she wants to...
if you recall, we heard testimony from Zecora earlier. She spoke about what she was doing that day before the crime occurred. One of those activities was looking for rare flowers, right around the scene of the crime.
Yes.
More
Along
Zecora
that
testimony?
castle's cliffside, sometimes rare flowers peek and hide. Sadly, when my search was done, I left without finding a single one.
Yes, I do remember that. But what significance does that have here?
I'm as lost as the judge
If
here.
Zecora had gone to the scene earlier that day, then she might be able to confirm for us whether or not the shards in question were present at the time.
Oh, that's right!
So, Zecora, can you confirm for us? The glass shards in the picture here. Were they there when you went to the scene that day?
How funny you bring this up to me. It just came rushing back, you see. That night at the scene, those shards I did spy. The glint of the moonlight caught my eye. And as for their presence earlier that day, I think you'll like what I have to say. Because as far as I can recall...
What can you recall, Zecora? I would love to know.
There were no glass shards there at all.
Thank you, Zecora. You've been a great help.
I love that pose.
So there you have it, Prosecutor Luna. The glasses were undoubtedly broken on the day in question, at some point prior to Sakura coming across the body. And I'm confident that
Ridiculously
once you get
long
these shards
animation.
examined, you'll find that they match
Brilliant
up to the glasses
pose.
Silver Spoon is prescribed to wear.
Sign me up.
That, in combination with the defendant's testimony, will leave very little room for doubt, I'd say. It'll prove conclusively that both Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara were at the scene that very night.
I concur with Princess Twilight. Prosecutor Luna, what are your thoughts?
There's only one
Prosecution
explanation.
concedes that the glasses prove exactly what the defense claims.
You do?
There is, however, one final question I must ask.
Oh no. And what would that be?
Does your stance in regards to why these two would have been in the forest that night remain unchanged?
Blackmail.
The evidence speaks for itself. The one who orchestrated this blackmail was Fair Devotion. It's possible you may have proven that Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon were at the scene, but do you still claim that they were the blackmailers, even in the face of evidence?
Yes,
Yes,
they are.
That's a very good question. Defense, do you have an answer?
What do you think, Athena?
What? Me? Twilight? I'm not even sure I should say anything at this point. I've already messed up once before, making claims that I couldn't back up.
True, but this is different from that. We have a footing now, one backed up by our own evidence. Regardless of how this trial has gone so far for us, I think we're finally getting somewhere. I think this is our chance to make up for our mistakes.
Twilight should be a Twilight should be a defense attorney at this point.
But Twilight...
Athena! I know you feel like you messed up, but that doesn't matter right now. I took a huge gamble with objecting earlier, but I did that because I trusted you could back me up if I needed you to. Yes, you accused Sakura, but we can't let that stop us. We've got one chance to bring those fillies to the stand. We have to take it.
Twilight? Even after what I did, you still believe in me?
I don't believe in Athena at this point.
Twilight just paved the way for us to make our comeback. Even if the evidence
She has
is
not
stacked
shown
against us,
a single shroud
we have to take a
of
chance here.
confidence
Together.
at all.
Miss Sykes, Princess Twilight,
Yes?
do you or do you not still assert that Miss Tiara and Miss Spoon were the ones behind the blackmailing?
Yes, yes they are.
Ready, Athena?
I hope so.
The Golden Pixie is back from her sulking journey, I see. Let us hear this final answer, then.
The defense?
The defense asserts it.
The defense still believes that Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon were the ones who blackmailed the Cutie Mark Crusaders.
Objection! And how do you expect that claim to hold, Golden Pixie? The evidence has clearly established that Fair Devotion is the only one who could have been the blackmailer. The magazines
no.
found in her home are conclusive to this fact.
That is true.
However, what if that very fact is nothing short of the true author's trap?
A trap?
You're claiming that us finding the magazines in Miss Devotion's household was something that the true blackmailer set up? And where's your evidence?
Of course. The glass shards. They prove that Silver Spoon and, presumably, Diamond Tiara were both at the scene where the blackmail was supposed to occur. That can't be a coincidence. If the magazines say they can't be the blackmailers, then perhaps that evidence should be called into question.
Exactly. The glass shards found at the scene corroborate the defendant's testimony. So if anything's suspect here, it's those magazines. It's quite possible they could have been placed in the victim's home in an attempt to mislead the investigation.
Yet, you have no definitive proof of your claim. Just speculation and
Why
guesswork.
wouldn't they write it?
Then there's only one way we can settle this. The defense wishes to call Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon to the stand.
We know they were there. It's impossible to hide that now. What matters at this point is what they saw.
Were they the blackmailers, or was it someone else? The only way we can find out for sure is by hearing what they have to say.
Yep. Only way to know. I have a feeling that we're coming to a stop here. They were there. That's an indisputable fact.
Allow me to give my thoughts on the matter. The prosecution has given us a very convincing case with only the slightest room for doubt. However, given the potential that there were additional witnesses to the crime that we have yet to hear from, I do not feel it is right for me to give a verdict.
Yeah, there's no verdict yet.
Prosecutor Luna, what say you?
I wholeheartedly agree, Your Honor.
No verdict yet. We need...
The defense has pointed out an interesting conundrum. By all accounts, it should be impossible for Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon to be the perpetrators of this blackmail. However, it was their effects that were found at the blackmail site, which would lead one to believe that they were involved. This contradiction cannot go unresolved.
It can't.
Therefore, the prosecution concedes to the
It is
defense's
an obvious
request.
contradiction.
Very well. This court will now enter a 30-minute recess. During that
It was
time,
more like a
I
month
expect
recess?
the prosecution to
Oh
obtain
yeah.
the results on those
More like a
flashcards and find out
long
if they
month,
match the
a
prescription
long
of
month
the Billy
recess.
Silver Spoon. If by chance they do, the court demands that she and Diamond Tiara are summoned here immediately to give testimony.
That last bit will be entirely unnecessary, Your Honor. After all, the two of them are already sitting in the witness lobby, waiting to be summoned to the stand.
Dang! They're already
Very
in there.
well. Court is now adjourned.
Imagine listening to this blubbering idiot of a defense attorney. I'm sorry, Athena, but you really need to. You really need to. Oh my gosh, they're doing a thing. That's amazing. They're doing the thing. And there was an Amber Alert. Oh my god. Well that ruined everything. Yeah. I don't know, Athena. I'm not sure if I trust you with the case right now. Also, what are you still doing here, Zecora? You can leave. Are we not going to address Zecora and allow her to leave? That's a very interesting. Oh my god. We'll now have a 30-minute recess, more like a month, a few month hiatus, just waiting for the new episode. Anyways, that'll do it for now, and I hope this series can go on for longer. And I do enjoy the HD sprites. I'm very surprised that they are able to be done for this. But for now, this has been Karma, and well, shoot. If I was smart, I would actually record all of the episodes, but unfortunately I didn't start doing that. I just thought that this was a very interesting one. I really want Turning Page to be convicted, but at the same time, I know they're not gonna convict the child like that. As for proof, I don't know. What evidence do I have? Well, there is the fact that turning sword is the one thing that is confusing me. And the other thing that's confusing me, what is Sweetie Belle's deal? What is she hiding? Why is she hiding? And did she do something that she regrets? Only time will tell. This is Karma signing out, and I hope that the next episode will be much better than this one. That's for sure. I do hope that Athena turns over a new leaf and isn't bailed out as much. That's my main criticism for this episode. Well, that's all for now.